Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020 Board of Selectmen's meeting. We got a pretty long meeting, so I'm going to waive reading the agenda. Certainly, everybody can follow it as we go along. Leah, why don't you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, we're going to start off with our citizens' input. Do we have any emails? No? Anyone? Okay, we'll go to COVID-19 update. Bill?
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Some good news to report this week. I don't know if anybody had followed the report I made yesterday, but we are now officially down to 114 cases. We've had 114 cases since the beginning. 100 people have recovered. Only two positive cases in Foxborough at this time, which is great to hear. So, and there were no people hospitalized at this time as well. So that's also good news. So really good to hear that. And we've had only sustained one death during the entire ordeal, which has gone back to March 15th. And we've lost 10 people during the follow-up phase for whatever reason. People don't necessarily stay in touch with us. And then we've also had 14 people test positive for the antibody test, which is the newer test that's been done recently. In case so, anybody who's had COVID-19 now can be tested that, and if you generate the antibodies, you can actually be called upon to help in some of the more severe cases. So that's always good, obviously good news to hear that. Statewide, there's 107,439 cases as of 4 o'clock this afternoon. But the good news also is that we now have less than 1,000 people hospitalized throughout the entire Commonwealth. 939 people and 181 in ICU units, which is even more impressive at this point in time. Now, I know that there has been several reports lately that on a national level, things seem to be picking up in other states. I think 26 other states are showing increases in COVID cases. But it looks like the entire Northeast, including New York, is actually on the opposite side of that. We're actually heading in the other direction. So it's important that we keep that in perspective. As the summer months carry on, we may see more cases evolve, perhaps on the Cape, as people try to vacation for the summer. We may see cases come out of different states that people come up here traveling, may carry it with them. It may infect other areas of the Cape. So we will have to keep an eye on that, obviously, something that I'm sure the governor is well aware of, and his team as well. Just on a couple other fronts, so we also had, on Monday, we had phase 2 began here in Foxborough, and as it did across the entire Commonwealth. We now have the ability to have 50% capacity in restaurants, in the restaurants themselves. We've had, obviously, a number of restaurants who are serving outdoors, and you'll see a couple applications here tonight for that, which is good news as well. And so business is starting to pick up again. I know that the restaurants at Patriot Place and the restaurants in Foxborough and in the center of Foxborough have actually done very well with the outdoor dining capacity. And so we're pleased to see that we're going to see more of that as a result of the application and the new process that this board, along with the planning board, has instituted to provide for outdoor dining experiences. So that's generally the good news about what's been happening on the COVID-19 front. We are, as a staff, are gearing up for the reopening of Town Hall. We're looking to do that the week of July 6th. Mike is going to give you more of an update of that. We are just finishing up a few of the last remaining things that we need to do. Again, it all depends upon what kind of guidance we get from the state, but at this point, that's what we're shooting for. And if everything is not in place, obviously we won't reopen. But we're about 50% capacity in terms of our staff right now, just about, in terms of staff in Town Hall.
No, much more than that.
Much more higher than that.
We're up to about 90%.
90%. Okay, so we had, because the numbers are relatively small, the capacity in this building is still much larger than the overall capacity of the building for employees, so therefore our numbers could actually increase. So a lot of people have come back to work as a result of that. But I think in terms of the opening the doors, that's when the capacity issue will come into place as to how much we can actually bring people into the building at any one time, so we don't exceed those capacity limits. And that's something that Mike will talk a little bit further about. But that's where we are right now. We're making good progress on all fronts, and operationally we're working on all cylinders at this point in time.
So Mike, the phase reopening update?
Sure. As Bill mentioned, the next major milestone we're looking for, in municipal government is the opening of Town Hall. As Bill mentioned, the July 6th is the date we're targeting. And as you walked into this building, you saw one of the plexiglass shields, same ones that used at elections and town meeting. We've now got them deployed here in Town Hall and other buildings around town. So there'll be one of those at each of the offices. On order, we have the stickers that go on the floor that create the social distancing as people line up at the different counters. And every window won't be open, but every office is, just because we don't have the plexiglass to cover every window. Interestingly, just as supply and demand goes, a $60 to $100 sheet of plexiglass went up to about $400 when COVID-19 hit, because the supply went down and the demand went up, and and folks capitalized on that. So Tony in facilities had a real challenge on his hands, just getting it at any price. But every office is open. As Bill mentioned, we were down at this building, as well as some others, down to about 50% employees on site in the buildings, and the rest working remotely unless they were using accrued time. Here it was down to about 14 employees out of our 33. We're up over 25 at this point, and folks who aren't here, there are a couple that are working remotely, several of them doing alternate shifts and split shifts, and others are on accrued time, vacation time, sick time, and otherwise. So everyone's accounted for. The signage is one of the things that we're working on, and this morning when we thought we were ready to order the laminated posters to go on the outside of the building, on the inside at the greeter desk, so that people could go through the checklist, do you have these symptoms, and then you could proceed further into the building. We found that the CDC updated a number of new symptoms. As the more this progresses, the more research they do, the more they're finding out, and there are all kinds of symptoms that go with this. And one symptom doesn't mean that someone has COVID, but it may. So we held back on making our posters, and we'll do that at the appropriate time. And we're actually going to make them so that we can update them as things change. And what that will entail is someone at the greeter desk, as folks come in, they'll have to check in just like they have in some of the stores and other things, and go through the checklist, yes or no. And if they have some of those symptoms, or have been asked to quarantine, or have been in close contact, then they'll be asked not to come into the building, but instead will be referred to the phone contact list, so that they can somehow conduct their business with the department, whether it's over the phone, through the payment slot, online payment, or having an employee meet at a social distance out in the parking lot, or somehow, certainly you're stuck.
Good.
No, you go, Chris.
Who will be the person at the front desk? Will it be a employee or a volunteer?
So that's still to be determined. So we're looking at a number of different opportunities for volunteers, with also the opportunity that it may be an employee. So initially we had said we're not going to have senior greeters there, our senior population. So I'm in conversations with Mark Craig, the Director of Human Services and the Council on Aging, to see, does he have folks that, are, as we know, the senior population, the age is dropping, so there may be folks that are not immunocompromised and are not that that old, because now, as he tells us, you know, our senior population starts at 55 now. So there may be, yeah, you and I are part of that club now. So there may be some of those folks. We're also in communication with the school department to see if there are juniors and seniors who have to get their service hours, and folks in the community who would volunteer their hours doing shifts, either 2 or 4 hours, doing that on a volunteer basis for the town.
Okay. Was that your question,
That was
Don?
my question, yeah. I deferred to you, Chris.
And that remains the biggest question mark, because that's a very important thing to do, so that we don't allow sick people to come in and can, you know, get other folks in the community and employees sick as well. But we haven't determined what is the best way to approach that. And our fallback is always we can use employees in the building, but what that does is it reduces our ability to meet the needs of the folks who are coming in to conduct their business. So we should know in a week or two which avenue we're going. So we're looking at 3 different avenues. Let's see. Another area that is still in play is how exactly do we phase people into the building to conduct their business once we do open the building. There is, stressing to people that, we do have online payment. There are ways to get your permits and licenses online, trying to really maximize on what people have already found helpful and been able to do. And then when they need to conduct their business in person is to call and make an appointment. And so we're looking at that as the first phase. And then later opening up more generally so that folks can come in a more of a free flow like they're used to being able to do, just come in when they're ready to conduct their business. And how that actually gets phased in is going to depend on what the health data looks like out there and our ability to meet that in an objective fashion. We will be asking, in fact requiring people to enter the building with masks, as we are in here, socially distanced. Once people get seated in their place and they're at a safe distance, then that's a different story. But we are asking people to come in wearing a mask. If they don't arrive with one, we'll have the mask and hand sanitizer at the greeter desk as well as at each office counter. Also supplied for employees. In general, most people, do bring their own masks, but we have a supply in case. Let's see. Any other questions on Town Hall before I move to other buildings?
I'm good. Anybody else? Good? Yep.
Good.
Okay. Yep.
So, Department of Public Works, as I reported last time, has everyone back to work out, doing their thing. We'll get a little bit later in the agenda to one particular item that involves, Public Works, and Chris will be joining in with us. But they are, a little bit different. When people go to the window to pay their bill, they'll be, in through the first set of doors, and then they'll be able to conduct their business out in the vestibule over at 70, West Elm Street. I almost said West Belcher. Library is the next one I'd like to talk about. They are continuing to provide curbside service to folks who go online, reserve their materials, and then call from the parking lot, and folks will bring that material out to them. Once the material is returned, it goes into, I believe it's a 72-hour quarantine before they'll reshelve that material. The library is sure. The library is waiting to phase 3 to open to having patrons come into the building, and that's consistent with what the rest of the state is doing. There are 2 libraries in the Commonwealth that have opened, but otherwise the other 349 communities do not have patrons going into the library yet. So we're following to see what are the other libraries doing, what's the Library Association doing, and what's the best practice. So phase 3 is when the governor's executive order and the legislature has opened that up to library services. So we're consistent with that. The staff is all, in the building doing their work unless they're on accrued time. Let's see, I reported to you last time on public safety and recreation, no changes there. Council on Aging, the staff is all there. And that one, we're playing it by ear. And again, based on health data and what the best practices are to get our seniors back busy with what they usually do at the senior center. That's a little bit down the road. However, those programs are going out to meet folks in the community online, and I know that Mark Craig and his staff have some other activities that they'd like to bring out, physically to the community as well, but not quite yet. So that's what I have so far for an update for you on the phased reopening.
Any other questions? Great, thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Okay, 7:15, right on time. Public hearing, Kitchen Partners doing business as Union Straw application for alteration of premises.
Okay. Okay, public hearing notice. The Board of Selectmen of the Town of Foxborough, acting as the local licensing authority pursuant to MGL Chapter 138, will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020 at 7:20 p.m. in the Gala Meeting Room, 40 South Street, Foxborough, Mass., on an application for an alteration of premises of an annual all-alcohol beverages restaurant license for Kitchen Partners, LLC, DBA Union Straw, located at 8 Mechanic Street, Foxborough, Mass. Manager Jim Glazer. All interested persons are invited to attend the hearing.
Okay, due to some notification requirements that weren't met in time, I'm going to accept a motion to continue this till 7/7.
July 7th.
July
correct.
7th.
Right.
I'll second it.
Do you want to officially read it first?
Okay.
Just move to continue.
Just move to
just move to
continue.
it, yeah.
Okay. All right, move to continue.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay,
Thank you.
great, thank you. Just out of curiosity, we're a tad early, Muse Bar. Oh, you're here already, great. Come on up front. Yeah. Muse Bar, change of ownership. So just tell us a little bit about what happened up at that corporate level.
Sure. So I'm Ryan Knowles, by the way. I'm the Senior Director of IT and Internal Operations at Muse. So yeah, at the corporate level, it was back, I believe, in August. The kind of previous ownership had taken some funding from a private equity firm, and in the past, previous to that, about, to be totally transparent, $15 million worth of funding. And in simple terms, squandered it. And so what ended up happening with the company was that the private equity group put the company under something called a federal receivership. It was a kind of precursor to bankruptcy, or rather I should say an option in lieu of bankruptcy, in which the company could then be acquired by this equity group, which is why we're now kind of before you. So what has happened as part of this is that the receiver, which is a kind of third party that controls the funds for the company, is kind of, they, have, unfortunately, I guess, proven themselves unable to manage their own funds. A third party takes control of that, and then in that interim period negotiates a kind of offering of the company, the outcome of which is usually that whoever is the kind of whoever lent the money to the company is then kind of given preferential kind of treatment in terms of the purchase of the company. So that's essentially what is happening. So when we're talking about the change of ownership, the entity that is called EAD Entertainment LLC, which is the proposed change of owner, they are the company that they are the LLC that has essentially been set up to own Muse Paint Bar, in lieu of the existing LLC, which is Muse Paint Bar LLC. So the idea is that they will acquire the company. They have not yet. They're still finishing the receivership process, but we wanted to get that the ball rolling on the license transfers kind of in advance of that, especially given the stringency of Massachusetts liquor laws and rules, and so that everyone was aware of the process, because a big part of the issue with MUSE in the past has been that there was a lack of transparency, especially at the corporate level, and so that's been a big step, that they want to have permits, they want to have regulatory stuff be above ground so that everybody's aware of what's going on, that we don't have to kind of chase someone down at a regulatory level and a compliance level. And that's one of the things that I've been brought on. So I've only really been with the company since October, and that was something as part of it that I was brought on to, as someone who had particular acumen in the area of regulatory compliance.
Anybody
In a
have-
nutshell.
In a nutshell.
Briefly, yes.
Anybody have any questions?
So, well, just state your name again for the record.
Ryan Knowles, RYAN
Okay.
KNOWLES.
So you are going to be working for the new entity?
Yeah, essentially anyone that was employed. So really operationally, there's not going to be a drastic difference in terms of, the only real difference is that a new LLC is going to essentially own the company as a whole. But yes, I will be continuing employment, yep.
So it's going to be your name on the liquor license then?
No, so the name, I think the name on the license is actually going to be Brian Reynolds, who is the full owner of EAD Entertainment LLC, and he is the kind of the principal of the company.
Okay, so the license is changing to somebody, to a different
Yes.
person? Okay.
Yes, I believe if that, yeah.
Will he be on site?
He will not, but we have put a manager form in for the person who will be doing the on-site operational side of it.
That may require a modification.
Well,
to do
okay.
that.
Yeah, that's
if
more
you-
information.
Yeah, if you actually, if you change the manager, you need to come before the board to make a formal notification of that, primarily for the determination of whether or not the person is considered to be a suitable person to do that perform
Yeah,
that work.
I think that as part of the license that the manager of the location had a full query form and all submitted.
But he has, so it is a new manager?
Yeah, so the manager, so we have 29 locations. Brian Reynolds owns the company that is EAD Entertainment LLC. So we have the on-site manager whose name is Junie Coelho, has also been put in as part of the application with the query check and all, so that for determination of suitability.
All right, but so this is a new person, is what you're saying?
The manager has been the manager of the location, is not changing.
Okay, so the manager is not changing?
No,
Okay, that's
I'm
fine.
sorry.
All
The
right.
manager of the whole entity is.
The general manager is changing, but not the manager
Yes,
of
but
the,
not
the
the
manager of the
location.
license is still.
I apologize if
Okay.
So that
maybe
employee
confused.
is
Yeah.
staying.
That employee is staying with the company, yes.
Very
I
good.
apologize.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
That's fine.
So at the store level,
Yes,
nothing's changed?
nothing's changing.
Okay, and my guess is that manager is on the license, but we should double check that.
Yeah.
You should double check, but I'm fairly sure that Junie is on the license. I think as part of the new application, we put in another kind of just so that all of you had all the information, but because I know that I had her do a query check and the manager form with the ABCC.
Right. If the management is staying the same,
Yeah.
we'll double check, make sure that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just a
yeah,
confirmation that
absolutely,
that's the
But
case.
other than that, then that's fine.
Yeah, functionally, even, zoning wise, all that stuff, health wise, service, wine and beer only. So there's really the only thing changing is almost like just take out the name of the LLC that owns it and put the new one in.
Okay.
Yep,
All right.
This is strictly a corporate restructuring.
exactly.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Only one question. Do I need to put in here anything about just making sure that the names are the same? Or are we good?
I think we're good with
That's
your
administrative.
motion
We'll check that
as
administratively.
we'll just
Perfect.
double check ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll confirm that.
You got
We'll
it?
check with Katie and make sure yeah.
Sure. Motion to approve the application for the transfer of license for the annual beer and malt beverages restaurant license common victualler, 7-day entertainment and Sunday entertainment license for EAD Entertainment, LLC, DBA Muse Paint Bar.
Second.
All right, any further discussion?
Yeah, just on the discussion, have we checked just to make sure that the town is whole from the old entity at Muse, like back water or any of that, or is that all part of the lease up at Patriot Place? I know like when we did the Waxies thing, there were some money still owed to the town.
Yeah, the difference here is that they're still made whole. There's no difference in terms of it's a corporate restructuring, so it's not like they're not like they're not buying the company out, or is it just a restructuring?
Yeah, so I mean, technically, the way that the receivership works is that the receivership owns currently all the assets, kind of in trust of MUSE. It's without getting too deep.
So whatever
into
debt they
yes.
have going
if
on,
they transfer it. Yeah, I believe that because I did the renewal back in December, and I believe that there was actually. I remember I had to do a bit of tracking down to see. I believe that there were some kind of outstanding debts, but I think that those were paid. But
those were resolved. Right?
Yeah. I believe they're resolved, and if they're not, I know that that obviously that I think that any debt that is held, if that with obviously because we are transferring this location to the new entity, I believe that comes with it. So
it has to be resolved.
Yeah, were there any resolution of debt necessary, that it would be.
But as far as I don't know that there's anything that's owed to the town.
I don't think so
at this point.
Yeah,
I'm
if
not
there
aware
were,
of it. We'll double check
let
that,
us
but I don't
know,
think that's the case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? None? Great. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right.
I believe I have some money orders for somebody. I don't.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. 7:30, Verizon small cell wireless application. I don't think they have to be here for this.
They're actually here.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, Dan is, you guys come on in.
Good evening. We're doing well. How are you?
Oh, great, thank you.
Good. So, small cell wireless application. Want to tell us a little bit who you are and...
Once again, good evening. My name is Dan Klasnick. I'm an attorney. I represent Verizon Wireless. And I just wanted to start by saying that Verizon Wireless certainly appreciates the opportunity to meet with the Board of Selectmen in person to really review and discuss the proposal to improve wireless service here in the town of Foxborough. Also appearing on behalf of Verizon Wireless in person is Derek Mayu. He's the site acquisition consultant. Attending virtually is the RF engineer, Louis Tevez. Hi, Louis. I'm sure he's with us. Just to give the board a little bit of background, what Verizon Wireless is doing, and really the entire industry is attempting to do, is to address the exponential demands being placed upon wireless networks. What I like to say is much like a highway, a network itself can become traffic jammed and unable to function if it doesn't have sufficient capacity. So I'm sure we've all sat in traffic and had circumstances where we wish that it was possible just to add some lanes. So what Verizon Wireless is doing, in I think a very creative approach, is to utilize existing utility infrastructure to add capacity to its network. This allows them to avoid circumstances where you might have a slowdown in network performance, a drop call. So this is, I think, a very creative approach. In compliance with your adopted policy, we filed an application for 5 separate utility pole attachments. We included, I think, a comprehensive application with all the materials that were required by your policy, including a set of stamped drawings, an affidavit from our RF engineer, affidavit from the project engineer, a detailed map, a site selection, also a letter of authorization from the pole owner, as well as the required fee. I think if you've had an opportunity to review the plans, as the name suggests, this really are low-impact type of installations. What is being proposed to be installed on an existing utility pole is a single canister-style antenna. The antenna itself will just be 14 inches in diameter and approximately 35.4 inches high. There's some additional equipment that's necessary to be installed to the side of the utility pole. This includes what we call a remote radio head. That processes the signal. There's some cabling and some other attachments, but I think what's important to emphasize is there's absolutely no ground equipment. There's no ground disturbance. Everything is up on the pole. We tie into the existing electrical service. We'll install an electrical meter, and that's generally the lowest appurtenance. Each one of the sites that we're proposing to install includes attaching the antenna I described to the top of the utility pole. Excuse me, I have a little trouble breathing. The purposes of these facilities, as I've already said, is to offload capacity. Verizon Wireless already operates certain macro sites, as we call them, rooftop traditional towers in the town of Foxborough. What these sites allow Verizon Wireless to do in a very targeted, low impactful fashion is to, once again, offload that capacity so that the network can perform properly. Without these types, and I can't stress how critical these are as part of the network makeup that Verizon Wireless is utilizing, trying to build upon its existing network to deal with all the capacity. As I had said, the proposal before this board this evening is for 5 additional small cell locations to be located on existing utility poles. Verizon Wireless has entered into a license with the pole owner. As part of that process, Verizon Wireless works cooperatively in a partnership with the pole owner to evaluate the available locations. Although Verizon Wireless is entitled to non-discriminatory access to any pole or right-of-way, the utilities can impose certain engineering limitations, so we have to really work cooperatively with them. That does limit the number of poles or the type of poles that may necessarily be available to us. So we do go through a very exhaustive site selection process. It can take several years to get to the point where we're before this board requesting approval to attach this equipment. Excuse me. So as I had said at the beginning, Verizon Wireless looks forward to working cooperatively with the town of Foxborough to install these facilities that will provide you with improved wireless service. Thank you.
Any questions from the board?
You know something, I'm looking here, and I want to make sure this is legal because, you know what, I never opened the public hearing for the MUSE. I'm looking down, and obviously this is new to me, so I'm looking at MUSE Paint Bar, and then it says read the public hearing. So I didn't open the public hearing for MUSE, and I didn't open this public hearing as well.
MUSE wasn't a public hearing, was
That
it?
shouldn't have been a public hearing.
No.
No, and this isn't listed as a public hearing either.
It's a public
Okay.
hearing notice for MUSE.
I've got it here. It's on the sheet that Christina gave me. I just want to make sure this doesn't come back, and I don't know if that means our vote is not legit or anything like that.
We don't need a public hearing, so.
That was just a change of structure, a corporate change, which doesn't necessarily require a
Okay.
public hearing, so.
All right, that's what I have in front of me.
Okay.
So-
Okay.
Okay.
So there are public hearing notices, though, for both of them.
Yes. That's,
I mean,
Come on. Don't bullshit. Ant manage it.
what's that?
someone's not on mute.
Somebody's on mute.
Oh,
What was that?
Okay.
Okay, I mean, obviously, this is new to me, so I don't want to make sure that
Shouldn't
anything we
be
did
a-
is not valid because we didn't.
So
This is
that's,
what-
it may be a notice that the meeting was going to be held tonight. But-
Okay, well, you know, something, I'm going to defer this to Christina because she gave this to me. It's opening up, and it says on the sheet gave me to open the
Doesn't
public
say
hearing,
public
close the
hearing.
public hearing, so.
Let me take a peek.
There's a public hearing in terms of, yes, it has to be open to the public for tonight.
It's the same thing, same exact thing that I read for,
For a
she
second.
there's
gave me.
newspaper public hearing notices in board docs.
On both.
For all, all three.
Yeah, we don't need it for this.
Okay.
For this, you actually do.
Yeah, why do we
For
think
this, you
so?
do.
For the
this, you
Verizon
actually
one.
do. For
Okay,
So we
Verizon.
can read that now.
I just caught it just now, and
Yeah,
then
for
I
this we
said,
do.
I said,
So
you know what,
yeah,
let me just make sure I don't want what we just voted on to be, okay.
No, This you actually do.
Okay.
So shall I open it right
Yes.
now? Okay, all right, sorry about that, guys. All right, the Board of Selectmen, acting as the local licensing authority pursuant to MGL, Chapter 138, will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020, beginning at 7:30 PM in the Gala Meeting Room, Town Hall, 40 South Street, Foxborough, Mass., on the application of small cell wireless license for Cello Partnership, DBA Verizon Wireless. All interested parties are welcome to attend.
Okay. Did a little bit, but that's on me. I apologize for that. I didn't get it. But we did the cart before the horse, so you already did your presentation. It is an open public hearing. Anybody from the public have anything to say? Any thoughts? Anything from the board? Any questions?
Just, I am a Verizon wireless phone owner, and I'm glad because there are lots of so I'm guessing this is to help with dead spots around town, to put the cells in?
Yes, as I had indicated, this is a capacity issue, so you can experience complete loss of service if
Yeah.
there isn't sufficient capacity. So
Yeah,
this will certainly improve service in the areas where it is being located.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Just a question on any of the mailings to any of the neighbors, any feedback from anybody, positive, negative?
I did not, we did send out all the mailings as required and provide proof of mailing, but I have not received any comments from anyone.
You do have a resident here.
Do you want to come on up here? Only because, can't hear you, but you can slide the chair all the way to your.
Can I ask a quick question too? I'm thinking about just after the question I just asked. If one of us are a Verizon customer and this would better our service, do I have to recuse from this at all, or?
No.
It provides service to everyone,
Okay.
not just to you.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Go ahead. Name and what address?
My name's Cheryl Pettit of the 81 West Street in Foxborough. I just want to know whereabouts on West Street it's going to be located.
Looks like directly across from the entrance of Normandy Farms, like on the Christmas tree side.
Three houses up from there. I know everything on your web, you don't believe everything on the web, but I pulled some studies up here and I was a little bit concerned. Is there any health concerns with these, any studies about
I don't know if
these
you're okay
cells?
touching this, but, well, Verizon Wireless is licensed by the FCC, and they're required to operate within certain parameters as far as the operational capacity as well as compliance with all mandated health standards. So because of it is an FCC licensed wireless service provider, they do operate in compliance with all those standards. So all facilities are fully compliant.
Okay, so it's 100% safe to have with no emittance of any?
Yes, I mean, as I said, the FCC, working with various health agencies over the years, have developed standards that Verizon Wireless has to meet. So in compliance with those standards, the FCC and those governmental agencies have made a determination that those levels are safe.
They're 100% safe then, yes?
Yes, I mean, you would have to, I mean, it's really up to those particular federal agencies, as I had said. They set the standards, Verizon Wireless meets those standards. The federal government is 100% comfortable, and the Massachusetts Department of Public Health has adopted those same standards. So they're comfortable, 100% comfortable, that there are no health concerns as long as you're operating within those compliance requirements.
Okay, where would I find that, on the web or something? Would I be able to find that
Yes, I
information?
mean, there is information. If you go to the FCC website, you just type in our radio frequency emission standards. There are specified standards. As I said, they've built them up over the years, and as I understand it, they're constantly confirming compliance and confirming that those standards are something that are safe for the public. So there's...
Okay, so in the event they find that it's not, would they take it down, or if anybody proved it different, or? you
They
think
can't, Verizon Wireless, because of their licensing, they can't operate a facility that's non-compliant. So they would have to correct it, take it down, cease operation.
Okay, who oversees that? Is it something they send out to you if there's a problem or something like that?
It's as I said, it's all regulated, once again, by their licensing. So the monitoring requirements and all that would be in compliance with the licensing requirements.
Okay, why not Route 1 versus a neighborhood?
As far as the site location choice,
Yes, yeah.
I don't know if Derek, if you want to
We
address
have
that.
several sites actually on Route 1. In this particular location in front of Normandy Farms, that's where they have a lot of loss of signal, which is why they're looking to put a small cell outside of that place. I mean, I think it's a pretty busy campground area typically, right, in normal operation, so they have a lot of loss of signal in there. So that's why they targeted that area for a
Okay, so
small cell.
what about near Route 1 versus, like just a little further up the street?
Well, these have a very,
Like
the
homes.
problem with the small cells, they have a very limited capacity. They operate at, I don't know, maybe 1/10 of the power that a normal rooftop or macros type site was. So they have a very limited range. That's why they have a specific targeted area like this. So a half a mile away, it probably is not going to work as well as the location it's at right now.
Okay, I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with that.
Question, do you have other ones like this throughout Foxborough? It sounds like on Route 1 there is, so
There's
this isn't
there's
a
10
brand
sites
new.
in town already.
Okay, so this isn't a brand new thing
Right.
that all of a sudden.
There's actually
we're
one
trying.
right here around the common if you go out where it goes out to Route 40. There's one installed
Okay.
right there. That's the closest one to this place.
And this
there's
just
one
kind
back
of
on
will
Chestnut Street too.
help the entire town kind of connect the loops as you're going.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
The area that you're speaking of, I'm sorry, you're going to say?
I was just going to tag on to his question that the application says that we can't do more than 5. Is there any so we do have these in town today.
Right.
And although they can only do 5 per application, they can have as many as they want around town. As
Later
long as
on,
they
yeah,
approve it.
they can continue
Yeah,
to
I think it's
reapply.
one of those, wherever there is a dead spot.
Gotcha.
You know, like I know back in the day, there was a section of Chestnut Street when I had Nextel phones where you just couldn't get anything, so.
The location that you're talking about as well is also in a bit of a hollow there, so that's why you have lots of signal all the time.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, I do notice in that particular area, there's like a blank spot, so you lose service in that particular area.
So I
This
don't
would
at
be-
my house, so that's why I was curious.
I'm sorry?
I said I don't lose service at my house, so I was just curious why they couldn't move it up or down a little further. I'm just not comfortable with it that close.
It's usually engineered to the location that needs it the most, is been my experience in dealing with that. So
Is that-
engineered by the
The
company.
engineers there, is that,
It is located, as you can see, right in front of the campgrounds.
Right, and I'm 3 houses up, literally, so.
I mean, I don't know how far that is, but as Derek has mentioned, what Verizon Wireless was primarily targeting, correct me if I'm wrong, is the campground.
Correct.
Because of the volume of traffic that they see there. I mean, there will be improvement along West Street as well, but it has to be in proximity to the campgrounds. And that's what they're trying to accomplish. They're trying to offload other sites. As I had said at the beginning of the presentation, Louis Tevez, the RF engineer, when he's designing these facilities, he'd look at each macro facility. Each location has to be positioned correctly. If you put it too close to another site, it might interfere or not provide the necessary service. If it's too far away, it won't offload the necessary service. So I know Derek goes out, or someone on his team goes out, and they'll review all the poles in the area. And as I had said, while we're entitled to access, we have to work with the pole owners as well. So there are a lot of restrictions that are also placed upon us. If there's a transformer, if there's risers, if there's primary, secondary power lines, that sort of thing. So that also limits the availability of locations so it's all part of the network design as well as accessibility, constructability.
So is there any possibility of looking into it to move it a little bit further away?
Well, as I had said at the beginning of my presentation, at this point, Verizon Wireless has probably spent several years working with National Grid to get the necessary licensing in place to select this particular location. And this location has been deemed by the RF engineer to be the one that's most suitable with the available poles. So we would have looked at other locations, but this would have been the one that would have been available through a licensing perspective and also would satisfy the network requirements.
So I don't have a choice of, you're going to just put it there and that's going to be that?
Well, we have to come before the Board of Selectmen. They're ultimately the permitting authority. We're making our presentation based upon all the evidence that we presented. I think we put together a fairly comprehensive application where we've included an RF affidavit and other materials to substantiate why we need to be at this particular location. So we would, respectfully request that the Board of Selectmen consider everything that we've gone through and the fact that we're trying to provide improved services to the town.
Okay.
Are there specifics that you have concerns about or just broad concerns? Because right now it sounds like, you've asked if they're safe. He's said they're in compliance. So is there a specific concern or information that you need us to evaluate when looking at this spot? Because it sounds like this isn't something that's new to town.
Correct.
We
right,
have these
which I
in
never
town
realized,
now,
obviously, yeah. I just pulled this up on the web, so I was just, I had some 20 facts about it, and I was reading it, and I was just a little concerned, and being this close to it, I was just curious of,
Well, what are
Oh, here, I'll just show you. Here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, because kind of tagging off what Leah just said, I mean, based on all the information we're given, you know, I mean, they have to go somewhere, so they're going to be near somebody's house. And I don't take that comment lightly either. For me, if I thought the best decision I can make is based on the information we're given, I most certainly couldn't feel comfortable if I thought it was going to put some residents in some type of danger.
I appreciate that.
So,
yeah.
but
look into that.
Yeah, I think we can only make a decision based on the information that we've been given. So, but you know, if they don't put it there and they put it a little ways up, it's going to be near somebody else's house. So, I just want you to know that I don't, at least for me, I'm only speaking for myself. If I didn't feel comfortable, I wouldn't vote in favor of it. So that's why I was curious.
Are you voting tonight? Is that what you're doing? Are you voting on it tonight, or?
Yeah.
Yes. You are.
Okay. Yeah. While you're looking at that, I got another question.
Okay,
anyway.
perfect. I was even going to say, if you want, Doc, I mean, it might be easier for her to tell, after you ask your question, maybe you could tell us what your concerns, rather than me read the whole thing, after you ask your question.
Yeah,
you know.
Sure. So just, obviously, we found out that the one on West Street is a dead area or one that needs a boost due to Normandy Farms. Have you found with your research the other 4 you're putting up are also areas that there is a high drop call or dead zone also?
Yeah, gap in coverage is really what they're about, correct.
Gap in coverage on the other 4 sites also, which are all 4 sites are also, as I look down, in residential areas.
Except the Walnut Street, that's kind of up by the health center. But it's ironic that the other end of Walnut Street, because that's where I live, there's no cell phone service at that end of Walnut Street, so I don't know if it'll help, you know, that area. But you pretty much lose it from Walnut to North High.
Walnut, where we were, I mean, it's a tough area over there too. There's a ton of tree coverage, and that's part of the problem with these small cells too, is that, like I said before, they're very limited in power and range, so any type of tree, brick building, whatever, it causes interference with it. So they have a very limited range. So the one on Walnut Street, where we were looking in probably 500 feet in either direction, is just poles are buried inside of trees pretty much, which is why we picked that one out in front of that. I don't know if that's a hospital or rehab facility or whatever it is, but that's why we chose that pole for that location. Same type of way we evaluate all of them is we're restricted in the poles we can use with equipment on them. There's all types of stuff on telephone poles. So like the one across from Normandy Farms is in a wide open area with, I don't know, where hundreds of feet.
There's a tree farm in front of it, so it's kind of dead. And then Vernal, there's a big plaza there, so there's no trees. And then Walnut has that health facility, and then one has the church, so there's no tree cover there. They do kind of all have that in common as you think about it. So do we know how many we have in town today? Just gauging, do we have one of these, or do we have
10.
100?
We have 10.
No,
there's 10 locations.
There's 10, and we're potentially approving 5 more.
Okay.
That's correct.
Yeah. One more.
Just for the record, Mr. Chairman, that this board actually approved this hearing process so that folks would have the ability to at least weigh in on the discussion so they have an understanding of what this means. There's a very limited ability for the board to say no to this, because it is a ability for the Verizon to actually do this based upon the requirements and the federal regulations, the FCC regulations. So the issues that the board could look at, things such as the visual effect of the pole, of the structure, if there's a way to disguise it potentially. But as far as the actual placing of the equipment on the pole, is a very limited ability for the board to say no to that. Otherwise, they have the ability to actually overrule that at the FCC level. So we have to be very cognizant of that.
And while I appreciate the research on this, you know, there's no source. It's 20 facts, and
That's
there's
what I'm saying. I'm not,
7 facts. Just in case anyone wants to see it, I'm just not sure what I'm looking at.
Right.
Okay.
But certainly, thank you for coming forward. I mean, it raised a bunch of questions that I feel comfortable that they answered, and you had some great questions and great concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
We want to close the public hearing?
Yeah, move to close the public hearing.
Yep.
Second.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I got my cheat sheet in front of me.
All right. All those in favor? Okay. Go ahead and read the next one.
Okay. All right, motion to approve the application from Cello Partnership, DBA Verizon Wireless for small cell wireless installations at 5 locations on Walnut Street, Chestnut Street, West Street, South Street, and Vernal Avenue.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you for coming.
So, Mr. Chairman, I stand corrected on the previous note that Stephanie made. I thought that was a change of corporate ownership, which does not require a hearing, but this was a transfer of the license.
Okay.
That does require a hearing, and that's why the hearing was appropriate. So the board can correct that by reading the notice into the record.
Okay.
Right, and then re-voting it. You've heard the presentation already, so that hasn't changed. But I would read the notice into the record and then re-vote it accordingly.
And we didn't have, there was no.
There was no
public-
question. There was nobody here.
questions
Nobody
or-
here on behalf.
Okay.
So.
Okay, the Board of Selectmen acting as the local licensing authority pursuant to MGL Chapter 138 will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020 at 7:20 p.m. in the Gala Meeting Room, Town Hall, 40 South Street, on the application of a transfer license for an annual beer and malt beverage restaurant license, common victular, 7-day entertainment, Sunday entertainment license for EDA Entertainment LLC, DBA Muse Bar, 27, and actually, you know something, I think I'm doing this wrong. I should just be making the motion to open the public hearing, correct?
No,
I think
you're
I'm-
you're
I already
right.
read that.
You're reading the notice. Yeah, that's correct.
Oh,
You're doing it
okay,
right.
okay.
You're correct.
All right. Muse Bar, 270 Patriot Place, manager to be determined. All interested parties are welcome to attend.
Now the public hearing is open.
So,
But if-
motion to open the public hearing.
Close.
So,
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. So I guess,
Close or?
in a second though, yeah. So I mean, I just want to be clear myself now, because at the end of what she just said as a public notice, with a manager to be determined.
he did indicate that the manager is not changed. So he did disclose that in the hearing tonight.
That the manager,
Is not changing.
right, so I don't understand,
No, it's a transfer of the license of the owner. So they're transferring it from the previous ownership to the new ownership. Okay?
Okay.
So and the management team is not changed.
But isn't the license usually held in the local manager's name,
Right.
not someone at the corporate level in Atlanta, Georgia?
No, you could as long as they name the person on site to be the manager, which they have done in this case, that's okay.
so am I confusing a liquor license where the manager is the,
The manager of record is the same in this case. They name, usually what they'll do is they'll do a DBA as the license holder, and then they'll actually identify the manager as who's going to be the manager of record. Now, sometimes it's a second part of the motion, but in this case, he's already identified the management team is not changing. Okay, do you follow me?
yeah.
So it's a it's really a change of ownership.
It's a change of ownership
Yeah.
of the license. That's why there's the transfer of license request.
Yeah.
I understood it as being it was a corporate restructuring, and I misunderstood that.
But the public
But it's-
hearing
but
does say
Well, he kind
manager to be
of did say
determined.
that
said
too.
it.
He said it, he said
Yeah.
that.
It was, right,
Yeah.
So,
okay. All right, so move to close public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then you suggest we revote,
I would transfer the license, right.
reread that one again?
And you know, he did note the manager of record as well in his hearing statement. So that remains the manager of record.
Okay.
Okay. Motion to approve the application for the transfer of license for an annual beer and malt beverage restaurant license, common victular, am I pronouncing that right? Victular?
Everybody
Common
says it a
Vic.
different way.
Oh, just like,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Dave gave me
Someone
that
should have
tip.
told me that.
You
just wanna watch me sweat it out.
I've heard it
Common
said
Vic.
20
Common
different
Vic.
ways.
7-day entertainment and Sunday entertainment license for EDA Entertainment LLC, DBA Muse Paint Bar.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
So on that note, though, at the Renaissance Hotel application for change of manager, that's a change of manager.
That's a change of manager.
that they don't have to be here, and there's no public hearing notice that needed to go out with that.
Are they going to be here tonight, Christina? They should be here, I would think. Right?
They usually do come up.
They're usually here.
Are they on Zoom?
Who is on Zoom?
Someone's trying to.
Do we have, yeah, there we go, there we go.
Yeah,
She's
there's
on Zoom.
somebody,
Yeah.
somebody there from, for.
There you go.
No, still can't hear you.
Can you just unmute yourself?
Yep, I'm unmuted.
There you go.
Oh, there we go. Now we can hear you. You from
Okay.
the Renaissance?
Yes, I'm one of the attorneys from McDermott, Quilty and Miller representing Colwyn Management.
Okay.
And then with me here is Norman Demers, who is the proposed manager of record that we are applying to seek your approval for. Norman has decades of experience in the hotel and hospitality industry, managing operations like this one. He's been at this location for several years as well, or with Colwyn Hotels for a couple months now. And he is TIP certified. And so we believe he'll be doing a great job managing this location. And we're happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, we see two gentlemen. Which one is the...
One is Norm.
Which one's Norm?
Norman Demers, yeah.
Okay. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, Norman?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great. My name is Norm Demers. I am the general manager here at the Renaissance Hotel in Foxborough. I was previously the general manager here back between October 2012 and 2015. I have been in the hotel business since 1986. I was a food and beverage director for 20 years, a general manager for 8 years now, and I have been involved in 6 properties with the management of the liquor license. At the hotel, we require all staff to be tip certified if they are working in the restaurant or banquets, handling any type of alcoholic beverage service, and I think we have a very strong record in the community, and I feel very confident that we can continue to operate as required.
Great. Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Just 2 questions. Are you going to be the food and beverage manager or the overall general manager of the entire hotel?
I am the general manager of the entire hotel.
Okay. So who's coming off of that? Do we have to do anything there?
So the last manager that was approved, manager of record, was Socrates Ramirez, but there's no vote to be taken, to my knowledge, to take them off. You just, from other hearings I've done, you would just approve Norm as the new manager of record.
Okay.
Okay.
So Norm is already the manager?
Yes.
He's not on the license, though. He's not. His name is not on the license.
Okay, okay, so that's the move they make, and then to make it okay, they come before us to get him on the license?
Exactly.
Okay.
He was serving, Norm serves as the general manager, but this is all, he will also be the manager of record for the license.
Okay. You want to read the motion?
Sure.
Great.
Motion to approve the change of manager for Caldwell Management, Inc., DBA Renaissance Hotel at Patriot Place and Hilton Garden Inn at Patriot Place.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you.
Welcome, Norm.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Time.
Aboard, Norm.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
All righty. The Commons. So this is going to be our first Tier 2 outdoor license application. Bill, you want to just catch us up a little bit?
So we have this is your first the Tier 2 applications, which means that you have a situation where the planning director and the BPW director will weigh in on the conversation because it actually is they're proposing to use a portion of the sidewalk in front of the Commons restaurant. I believe they're looking to locate 4 tables on the sidewalk in front of their restaurant. it does require that both the planning director and the DPW director weigh in to identify any concerns or of the possible location of those tables if it results in interference of a use of the sidewalk, etc. So, so Chris is on now as well, so you'll be able to hear from both of them.
Okay, let's go ladies first. Paige, you want to weigh in?
Sure. Hello from my backyard.
Nice.
Yes, so we're excited to bring forward this application. This is the Commons Restaurant at 20 Central Street. They are proposing 4 tables, 20 seats right on the sidewalk. I'll let Chris get into the details of design because he was kind enough to do the design. And I know the Commons is just looking for a little help from the community. And we also think that the community members would love to sit and eat breakfast on Central Street, wave to their neighbors as they drive by. So the application is complete. We've got all the documentation. I think you have it in board docs. And I think at this point, Chris, maybe if you just want to give a little detail on the layout and sort of the logistics, perhaps that's what people will have questions on.
Am I unmuted?
Can't hear you yet.
I need to turn yourself up there, Chris. We're not hearing you very well.
How about now?
A little bit more.
A little bit more?
How about now?
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
All right, that's better.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did meet with 2 of the staff members up at the Commons. I did help them out with the plan when they first submitted their application. You know, reviewing it definitely wasn't going to be something that I felt comfortable bringing forward to the board as something that I could recommend and actually review. So I went up there, I gave them a little bit of help. They are looking for 4 tables. They will be spaced 7 feet apart. They will abut the building. So they are 4x2 folding tables. So that'll take up 4 feet of the sidewalk. They then have a 2-foot buffer around the tables where the servers will be able to walk along the edge of the sidewalk, so that they can serve the tables, wait on the tables. There then leaves 36 and like a half inch between the barrier and the curbing. So that is sufficient for ADA compliance. They're able to keep their 3 feet on the sidewalk. They don't have to push anybody out into the parking spaces, so we don't have to block off parking for pedestrians. They do have a 5-foot opening where the doorway is inside the restaurant. So they are able to have flow into the restaurant for restrooms. And I believe now they're able to actually have indoor seating. So this should help complement that, where they can have outdoor seating on the sidewalk. I think, Paige, I think you said 20 seats, but they're looking for 4 tables of 4 seats. So 16 seats outside.
Great. Thanks, Chris. And not having to worry about parking spots being taken up is huge.
Definitely.
Yeah. Any questions from the board?
Now, you answered my question, just how much ADA room that they would have.
And if people, I was thinking the same thing, people will be able to, they won't walk onto the street if they can't get by, but yeah, Chris answered all that.
So just one question, all of the stuff that we do have in board docs, I just want to make sure we spent a good couple of meetings, joint meetings with the planning board going over these, where we covered everything, we followed everything, every department that should sign off has signed off on this?
Yes.
Yes.
And we did, we went today, we learned a good lesson about additional insured. And we did make sure, I actually spoke to the insurance agent today, and the town of Foxborough is included on the insurance policy as an additional insured. I know that was a concern, I think, of yours, Chris, during our discussion. So that coverage is included. So yes, they got everything. I spoke to the landlord today. We got the writing the permission in writing for that. In fact, we were able to talk about uptown happenings and sort of opportunities for uptown. So that was a great connection to make with that landlord. So altogether, yes, we think it's a good application.
Good. Yeah, that was just my thing. We spent a lot of time putting this together in short order, so I just want to make sure that all that hard work putting it together, we're following it. So, okay.
We've got almost about 10 applications now, 10 license situations now, Paige? 8 or 10?
Might be close to that, yeah,
Do we have,
absolutely.
do we have any
Another one in
more,
today.
do we have any more like this on town property coming, or?
I haven't seen any. No, I think that's it.
The only thing we
I've
just
gone into House of Pizza twice. We're trying to work on Sam.
Yeah, I've talked to him twice, too.
The only thing we just might have to edit that application still says 20 seats, so we'll just have to correct that to 16 in your office before you sign it.
I don't think we have to edit it, though.
Four
do we?
tables.
It's literally just crossed out. I think someone should just cross it out before Bill signs it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah, like
net,
there's
net,
a draft permit, so you want to make sure you change that because it does include a number of seats in it.
Yeah.
So that
Okay.
whatever the draft permit you're going to issue, you want to make
fair
sure.
enough.
Paige and I
Okay.
worked
Yeah.
long and hard on this
Yeah.
application.
Just wanted to know. All right, good.
Fair enough. Okay.
Fair enough.
All right.
But just a simple X out and
It's literally
16
take a
will be-
pen, cross it out, and make it 16 instead of
Okay,
20.
great.
But I mean,
because it nets out to be the same.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, I'm excited to sit outside uptown and have some breakfast. It's kind of a
First time ever,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it's kinda cool. So
Yeah, and yeah,
French
don't,
Riviera.
don't have to say anything if you don't want to. Yeah, you're ready.
Bring it on.
Bring it on.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
when would you be looking to do it? Would it be like effective as soon as this is signed, or what's your effective date?
We were open tonight, we do it tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Great.
As long as the weather is permitting.
Yeah, I don't think the rain's supposed to come till tomorrow afternoon.
Right.
Breakfast will be good.
Best of luck with it.
Awesome.
I won't be, but they will.
All right, any further questions? I think we have a motion, though. Yeah.
Motion to approve the temporary outdoor Tier 2 dining license for the Commons as the design and location of a temporary outdoor dining area is suitable to its environs, consistent with public health and safety interests, and that all of the requirements have been met and is to expire November 1st, 2020, or when the state emergency is declared over by the state.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I do have one quick question. So that date of November 1st, at some point, if we open full, we're still going to allow anybody to continue the outside?
It's whenever the governor extinguishes the emergency.
Okay.
All right, or November 1st.
Or November 1st.
November
Okay,
1st.
all right, great.
We originally
speak up
had a
on
later
that?
date, and then through a lot of discussion, we brought it in to match the governor's order.
I want to make sure that motion language is correct because it says the end of the emergency. I think the language should be the order, because we actually reference an order in the regulations. I think we should include that because we don't know when the state of emergency might end. That might be soon or so, but we know that the November 1st or the order, the governor's order, so that language should be consistent with the regulations. So there's no confusion.
Yeah, that's right.
Has met and is
It's one or the other.
expired.
It's,
Or when
whichever
state
sooner.
emergency is declared by the
Whichever is
state.
sooner, right?
No, don't use the word state of
Yeah.
emergency.
It's
Use the end of the
It's the
order.
governor's order.
Governor's order.
Right, it's the governor's
Governor's
order.
order.
Okay,
Right.
so just say when the governor's order is declared by the state?
Is, the
Or
other governor's
just
order
leave it,
is,
state emergency completely out. When the
governor's order is lifted.
Is lifted.
is lifted. Okay, do you want me to read the whole thing over?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Motion to approve the temporary outdoor Tier 2 dining license for the Commons as the design and location of a temporary outdoor dining area is suitable to its environs, consistent with the public health and safety interests, and all other requirements have been met and is to expire November 1st, 2020, or when the governor's order is
lifted.
over,
Is lifted.
is lifted.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye, great. Congratulations, tomorrow morning.
Good luck.
Thank you, Paige. Thank you, Chris. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Good luck.
Thank you, Paige.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, you're staying on, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
next up is the DPW trash barrel discussion. So, okay. So, Bill, you want to give us a little background on this and how it went back and forth a little bit? And
Sure. So we have a situation now where we have a state guideline, which is in your backup documents, that indicates that it places a limit on us actually placing barrels out, and that there was not an expectation that barrels should be out until, I think it's phase 3, Chris, if I'm not mistaken? Chris? Has it been stated?
We won't know
phase
that
yet?
until he puts the safety standard out.
Okay, so the safety standard doesn't allow us to effectively to put them out. It does, it says, it gives some sort of guidance, but the guidance is really, it's not great guidance, put it that way. It puts Chris in a very difficult spot. So we've actually been looking at different options because we don't want to put the employees in harm's way, and we don't want to create a situation where we leave a lot of mess on any of the fields either at the same time. So Chris and I have been talking, and we came up with an option that we think might help, and that is we've been reaching out to our local trash collector, Dooley, which is now, the new name is
UMR. MR, yeah.
MM, United Materials Management.
United Materials Management, right, UMM. UMM, okay. United Materials Management. And they've indicated that they will actually donate the service until the requirement is lifted, and the order is lifted, the standards are changed. They will provide that free of service, and they will generate, what, 20 barrels, Chris, if I'm not mistaken, is the number that they came up with to the various fields.
I talked to Anthony, when we were talking through at the end of last week, it was, where could we use barrels? If we were going to do this and change from the strict carry-in, carry-out guidelines and standards, where could we use them? So, kind of came up with, 5 or 6 around the booth, a couple behind the IGO, a handful over at Payson, and then I think I had one more spot in mind. I had 4 locations, and we had 20 barrels scattered around those 4 locations.
And they have to be in locations, obviously, where the truck can pick them up. So that's part of the challenge. Now, the other thing is, this is an opportunity as well to notify people that it's a carry-in, carry-out policy that's been in place during the COVID-19 crisis. And even though it's been told and it's been said and sort of been published in several different locations, for some reason it still hasn't gotten out enough. So we're trying to do the best we can to get that word out. That being said, we also recognize that people have not been abiding by that, and so we do need to provide some level of relief here so that we don't create a situation that's worse than what it is right now. So that's the solution that we've at least come up with as a possibility, and certainly welcome to hear any thoughts or other ideas.
How many trash barrels do we normally have scattered around town on fields? And I guess Chris, maybe?
In the height of the season, between baseball and on all these spring events, and then going through the fall as well, we have about 150 trash barrels that we put around town.
Well, I'm going to ask Deb first, your thoughts on, is this going to mediate the problem, you think, or? Because I know the issue came up because there are a number of areas in town where trash is just being left, unfortunately. And I know we all got a letter, I think forwarded from maybe even you, Heather, from Doug, that it's just unacceptable. And it really is, that people can leave such a mess. Right. Do you think the 20 barrels is a good start?
I think it's a great start. I think it's a very, very generous contribution from UMM. If that's what Chris is comfortable with and his guys are comfortable with, then I think that it's a no-win. I mean, not a no-win. It's a win-win.
Win-win. So the challenge we face is that as long as the standard remains in place, if we order them to do it and they get sick or they get hurt, we own it, and that's the problem. We can't. When there's a standard in place, we can't put them in that situation.
Understood, but we can't have the trash that's around town and on our property either. So it is a catch-22.
Right.
And we have barrels on the common. There's barrels, I think.
You don't want to read outside, it's full.
Yeah, so there's definitely trash barrels around. It's just, looking at it, it seems a little inconsistent where they are, or where it's safe to empty trash, or where it's not. And I just want to.
Sorry, the barrels on the common are actually, they're secured to the ground. we would physically have to like dig up the concrete to get those barrels out of there.
Okay.
So that's why those ones have been left there.
You're pulling trash bags out of those barrels, not
Yes, we're
lifting the
pulling
barrels.
bags out of those. Yeah.
And
you're right. There is a lot of trash up there. We're up there every morning, emptying those barrels on a daily basis. We do have, if anybody would like, Dave Laliberty is on the phone or is on Zoom. This is something that we have, a 17-page policy on how to come back to work. And we have to keep guys, in separate trucks. We're sanitizing the building 3 or 4 times a day. The type of trash that's in these barrels on a good day is gross. Never mind with a pandemic in the world. So like Bill was saying, we have a safety standard that said that there should be no expectation of public trash receptacles on these public fields, on these open spaces. And that's something that I take seriously, and I know Dave takes seriously. Dave's been doing this for 48 years and has emptied trash, every week for 48 years. This is not a long-term thing. This is something that while we're in this pandemic and while we have this safety standard in place, that, that's what's going to be best for the DPW, in my opinion. Do I think putting 20 trash barrels scattered around town will help? It might, but I think the people that are going to leave the trash sitting on a bench or on the wood guardrail or in the field are going to continue to do that.
That's a great point, Chris, because one of our questions is, then who picks it up?
Well, on a regular basis, when Tree and Park goes out.
Hi, Dave.
Chris, if I can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, Dave Laliberty here. I go out every day. I mean, no matter how many barrels you have out there, there's always going to be trash. I mean, it's just a way of life. But I just feel like when you have the carry in and carry out, if that's the people that generated that trash, it's clean trash at that point, and they're just taking out their own trash that they touched. I really feel adamant about not emptying the barrels, because everybody throws everything in those barrels, not just your normal trash that you take a gum wrapper off and throw in there. And those barrels sit out in the sun for a week, and they get full of maggots, and the rain rains on them, and it's nasty. It's nasty. It's not that we don't want to do it, we don't like to do it, but I just feel like with this COVID, I think we can get through the summer, with a carry in, carry out policy. I've been talking to people around town. I'm getting a lot of positive reviews on it, that people think it's a good idea for this to happen. It's a time to educate people and to try to get away from the nastiness of what goes in those barrels. And I'll tell you, I come in the morning and, it's on my own time. I come in around 5:30. I drive every field and I check them. And on the way home, I do the same thing. And today, I can tell you, I picked every single 200 and something acres of trash today, and I got a 5-gallon pail. So I don't really see where it's a major issue. It's an education opportunity, and let's see what we can do and see if we can come up with something for the long haul that's a little less nasty.
Dave, I agree, and I think by having this discussion tonight on TV with the Selectmen, we'll bring it out even more and give people more time to consider it. I just am concerned about the people that are not educated enough or not savvy enough or don't care enough that they're going to leave the trash around, and it's happening. Mm-hmm. And again, my question is, are you going to pick it up?
Deb, we do it every day.
Okay.
We do trash every single day. For my whole life, I've done trash every single day. And when we go out to mow or maintain anything on these fields, my guys pick up what's on the ground. And it's minimal right now. It really is. I mean, you can just take a ride around any time. And these fields are starting to get used. And I think people are doing a great job. Or actually, I really think the people have stepped up and policing themselves. And, you know, personally, I think they're doing a great job.
Chris and Dave, do you think maybe we could get some laminated signs that maybe town policy during the COVID crisis is a carry-in, carry-out trash policy? That
They've already done that.
They are? Oh, I haven't seen any, and I've walked the fields.
Oh, yeah, they're all on the fields.
They were put up yesterday.
Oh, okay.
And they were Chris did like a little education campaign on Facebook and stuff to let people know, you know, just kind of getting ahead of it. But so is this temporary or is this for the long haul? Like, is this, we're just talking phase 2? I just want to be clear. We're only talking phase 2, you know, because.
Well, we don't know what the phase, where the phase is that the governor's going to lift the restriction.
But we're talking about this COVID-related temporary, not a change of services.
Correct.
Going on permanently.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the service that's being offered through
UMM.
Thank you. Yeah. So many different acronyms. UMM is actually a temporary service, but you know we're open to the conversation of saying, you know, do we want to look at this in a better way long term to see if that is a better solution for dealing with this? Because quite honestly, it's not a situation that anybody really likes, and you know, and I think if we can come up with a better way of dealing with it, we certainly will look at that. But I think, quite honestly, this is a two-phase issue. One is a education issue. It's also a compliance issue for residents and anybody else using the field, because it's not just residents, by the way. It's other people from outside the community that are using those fields. I also think that it's a solution-based issue right now, and that's something that at least we have some relief being offered through UMM.
And that's at no additional cost to us. And will we see any savings then with not having to do those 150 barrels, or is it kind of washing with everything else going on?
Yeah, it's going to be more of a wash, because I think, quite honestly, well, I'll let those guys speak to that, but.
Yeah, I mean, in the height, when we have 150 trash barrels out, you know, we have a dumpster behind Elm Street that, you know, we spend a significant amount of time going around emptying all those barrels. And we empty that dumpster probably twice a week. It's a 30-yard dumpster, and it's probably getting dumped twice a week at $550 each time. So yeah, if we're gonna have 20 barrels around town at different fields and we're not hauling 150 bags, then yeah, there will be some cost savings. But you know, I mean, we're talking about this summer, so we're looking at, you know, the next 6 to 8 weeks, you know, and then we have to figure out what happens in the fall. You know, is there going to be football? Are high school sports going to start? You know, what else happens in the fall that changes how we're acting right now? So, I mean, in reality, when I talked to Anthony with UMM, it was, you know, for the summer was what I talked about. And if something changes between, you know, now and the fall and the standards change, then, you know, we can change our operation. I think in Dave's mind, until COVID-19 calms down for good, or there's a vaccine and there's a way to protect the staff, you know, we're gonna kind of look to not put those barrels out.
This can't be a unique problem to this town. You know, every town must have this problem. So what are other towns around doing?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to chime in where you were going with that, Leah. So, okay, first I'm going to open up with saying I most certainly have people's safety in mind first. I see trash barrels everywhere, at the grocery stores. You know, since I saw this was going to be on here, I've driven through St. Mary's. I was watering at my in-laws' stone the other day. There are trash barrels there. Where I work, I empty a trash barrel. I'm saying this, you know, like I said, I'm not taking it lightly, but I'm not really sure why we aren't just throwing on some gloves, throwing on a mask, pulling a bag out, and throwing it. I did do a little research. I called a couple of towns. Plainville, Sharon, Mansfield, Franklin, and Walpole are all business as usual. Their fields all have trash barrels out there. So I'm not really sure why Foxborough's a little different. Like I said, I'm saying that with, I don't want anybody to get sick, but trash has been, you know, trashmen have been picking up the trash throughout this whole thing. And honestly, I think we should have trash barrels on our fields and public areas where people are going to be. I don't think we can, I really don't think we can rely on people to take their own trash out. I coached high school sports for 10 years at the high school. I was the one picking up all the water bottles. The kids leave them. They don't pick them up from our team, other teams. You know, honestly, I think it's very generous of them to offer 20, but that's why I was curious how many barrels we had. If there was 150, 20 is, it's very generous, but 20 isn't touching it in my mind. I'm just not really sure, you know, and they are saying things now that a lot of with the COVID stuff is not touch anymore. Some of it is, I guess, if your guys would put their hands in the barrel and touch their face, but if you're wearing gloves, and I mean, this is what I do at where I work. I have to empty the trash.
Yeah, but
and so, well, let me just finish. So I have put on my gloves, I take it, whatever, the gloves come off, okay? I believe me, this isn't about that I'm not concerned about safety. I'm concerned about the trash around town. All right, I'll let you talk.
I could chime in.
Absolutely.
I could chime in.
Yes.
Hey, I just to let you know what we deal with. The trash barrels have a black plastic bag in them. They have a hole in the bottom of the bag so that the rainwater doesn't fill them up, so they're not too heavy to get out. We pull the bags, the coffee, the water, the juice. You got baby diapers in there, you got dog feces in there, you got needles in there, you got household trash, household garbage. So it drips out, and it drips on the guys when we put it in the truck. Then we go down the garage, we have to dump it on the ground, and we have to re-pick it up and throw it in the dumpster. I am really adamant that everybody that puts something in that barrel, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if they have COVID. I don't know, you know, where that family has been. And I've been out here since the start of this trying to protect my guys by cleaning trucks, you know, keeping one guy in the truck. We have a policy in town about cleaning everything up. And I really feel strongly about what's in those barrels that we don't know what's in there. So, I mean, that's where...
Well, you know what, Dave? That's why I think, I don't know if Leah asked, I mean, that's what I mean. A lot of things you're saying, it's coming across to me like you guys don't want to pick up the trash anymore. And I do want to tag a little bit off because my daughter at 15, 16, and 17 years old, working at booth camp, was emptying trash. And because they were told it was booth camp trash, and the town was not going to pick it up. And at 15, 16, and 17 years old, she was emptying those trash barrels and putting them in the dumpster. So if you are concerned, the COVID is one thing. If this is going to be temporary, I can kind of go work with you there. But if this is going to be forever, nobody was concerned when the kids at booth camp were emptying. We're told to empty it because the town wasn't emptying it. So I just want to make sure that this is just a COVID issue. And we're not going to be forever.
This is totally temporary.
Okay.
The booth camp empties their own barrels during the day because we can't get there 3 times a day to empty their barrels.
Yeah,
and they overflow, they get bees and everything else in them, and that's a concern with them. I've been doing this, you got to understand, I've been working for the town for 48 years, and I've done trash my whole 48 years. It's not an enjoyable process, but we do it. And this is not an attempt for, like somebody say, to stop doing trash altogether.
Okay.
Because once we get back to what is something of a normalcy, then we'll just go back to what we do.
Mr. Chairman, so this is really an operational thing, which I think we can fix. But I want to just say that from a perspective of, Chris, just if it's not 20 barrels, maybe it's 40 barrels, maybe it's 50 barrels. What's a reasonable number we can use to address this issue on an ongoing basis and get away from this on a temporary basis, because you're not going to have camp this summer. There's no camps being used, so there's not going to be anything down at the. There'll be some kids obviously at the parks, but you don't have the volume in some cases. You do have baseball, but it's still limited to a degree, right?
Yes,
At this
drills
point. So,
only.
Yes.
so I think there are a number of factors that are that should limit it naturally anyways this year in comparison to other years. So even though it's 150 barrels, yes, but that's a peak situation, right, Chris? And that in terms of if you had all the, you know, the June, the Founders Day, you had the, you know, the parades, all that stuff, we would use all 150 barrels.
Well, it's
But we're
for me,
not-
20
Yeah.
compared to 150. Maybe there is a better number, like
But the
you're saying,
issue,
Bill?
but we're still emptying the ones on the common.
Yeah.
All right? And so, and we're still, in dealing with the ones, and obviously the 20 is really for the fields, is that correct? Primarily for the recreation?
Yeah, so
So.
it's, you're really looking at who's using the fields, and right now it's baseball.
Okay.
Lacrosse is canceled, there's no soccer, it's baseball. It's Foxborough Youth Baseball and softball, and it's whoever rents the fields from recreation. That's who's using the barrels.
Mr. Chairman.
Did I freeze?
No, you're good.
No, you did for a second.
Mike?
Can I chime in on this for a second? As the Human Resource Director, you know, I put a lot of credence in what Dave Laliberty says here. He, from the very beginning, you know, DPW took the lead on how we're gonna keep providing services and keep our employees healthy so that they could keep providing services to the town. And when he says they were going one person to a truck, cleaning the truck before and after, they've been very, very responsible, and they've been working twice as hard to provide, you know, the same amount of services as before. This has been a very labor-intensive time. This is a COVID-19 issue. These are folks that we care about. They care about the town. And I think we have a responsibility to not only show that we care about them, but also protect the town, because if one of them gets COVID-19, if one of them gets seriously sick, the town owns it. So I think we have to show that we care for our employees, but also show that we're caring about the liability of the town. I really think that we need to step up, take advantage of this opportunity for the 20 barrels or whatever it is to take care of this period during COVID-19. And then once we get past this, you know, let these guys go back and do the work that
And I would just
dedicated
add to Mike's point, though, that the number of 20 is a number that they gave us. That doesn't mean we have to stay with 20. We could go with a higher number. We may have to pay for that, but that's okay.
Right, we can readdress it.
We might have to pay for that
Did you
operation.
want to, come on up front, though. Sorry. No one can hear you back there.
You can hear me, dog. You know I can yell.
I can hear you, but people at home can't hear you.
Two things. One, down at Payson. I'm down at Payson a lot. And it's passive recreation. There's not even people that were using the fields for baseball or anything else. And there is stuff everywhere, all right? The police impact down there would help because there's a lot of drinking, teenage drinking and stuff that goes on down there. I've taken pictures of empty containers, things of that nature. There's dog disposal bags all over the place. We have signs posted that says no dogs allowed on the fields. There are dogs on the fields all the time. In fact, I took a picture because someone taped over the word no and says, now it says dogs allowed on the field. All right? So people, to the point that was made earlier, they're gonna do what they do. They've been doing it for years. All right? We have a COVID situation, there's no doubt about it. But people have been emptying trash for a long time too. All right? And some of that same rancid stuff that's been in there has been in there for years. And you know that I've been emptying a lot of barrels down there for a lot of years myself. All right? And right now we have barrels that belong to Foxborough Youth Football that is not in season that are being filled with trash, nice enough that people put it in there, but those barrels are being filled. Who's gonna empty those barrels? All right? We don't have a dumpster on site yet. Once we get our dumpster, yes, it gets used by a lot of people for a lot of reasons. It happens. You know, it happens everywhere. To Mike's point over there, the protection of the employees, if somebody comes down with COVID, my only argument would be is how could you trace it back to them emptying trash? They could have got COVID from a lot of different areas. So to say that we own it, yes, we do. But are you going to be able to trace it back that John Smith emptied that trash barrel down at Payson, and that's where he got COVID.
I think the real challenge with that, though, is that there's a regulation that says we shouldn't.
I understand.
That's the ink in the
So,
issue.
Bill, what are the other towns that I call that are business as usual?
I don't know. I mean, it could be they're doing something different.
I don't want anybody. I absolutely don't want anybody to get sick. Believe me. And we have great DPW, great people that work for it. But you know, at some point. That's why if other towns are business as usual, trash is being picked up, it's like I said, I'm emptying trash bags myself. You know, I think there's a safe way to do it, and
I think the difference here, Steph, is that Chris has pointed out and David's pointed out, they used to do it with 2 people in the truck.
Yeah.
Right. They're now doing it with just 1 person. There's 1 person per truck, so that makes a difference. Especially if those barrels, those bags are pretty heavy, which they are. Yeah. Especially if you get water in them. Yeah. You know, so and the stuff, and if it's been there for a while, it gets pretty heavy. So we don't want to get people getting hurt just lifting it into the truck. Yeah. That's the reason why I think it's important to find out what's the number. If we find out what the number is, well, put the barrels out there. I think that's the issue.
Yeah. But I think bringing this back,
so I think
full circle, if I could, is go ahead, Chris.
Sorry. So when I talked to Anthony, I called out 20 barrels. You know, I thought about where the fields are getting used, and it was 20 barrels, and the discussion was that they would empty them twice a week. So that helps because the fields, the baseball fields, high school, little league, whoever, that trash is going to get emptied more than once a week, which helps. The other thing that I just want to point out is that this affects me. I am coaching Little League this year, again for the 4th year, and I made it clear to all the parents that I don't want the kids bringing reusable bottles, and if they do, they should bring them home with them. And I made the mistake last night of not calling out the kids that had Gatorade bottles with them, and I ended up picking them up, and they're in the back of my truck, and I brought them home and I threw them in my trash. So this isn't something that I'm doing and saying, you know, it has no impact on me. This impacts me. Right now, Monday and Friday night when I'm at the baseball field, I'm responsible for my 9 kids, and I'm responsible to make sure the field's clean at the end of it. And that's the public education piece that needs to go out to the users of these fields. Chris, so the organized sports need to know that.
Chris,
and even if we put the barrels, if we put 20 barrels out.
Is the 20 barrels a solid number, or is there more wiggle room? I would be more comfortable with more than 20 barrels, and the twice a week emptying is awesome. Thank you so much. I'm not looking for 150, which is the standard. I am looking for a comfortable number, which could be higher than 20. You have the skateboard park opening up. The ball fields will be getting used more, the tennis courts, the hockey rink. The skate park alone generates a barrel, so that's now giving you down 19 for the fields. I just wondered about that number.
I don't think it is set in stone, and as Bill alluded to earlier, if we have to put more barrels out and have to pay for them, we'll do it.
So I guess the point is that if it's, I think we try the 20, we start out for the 20, and then if we have to make adjustments, we'll add barrels. I think that's a fair compromise.
Is 2-week trial enough? Do you want to come back in front of us in 2 weeks?
See how it works.
And if you say it's not enough, we'll get another 20.
Games start next week, right?
It'll be a great judge.
I think it's a generous offer. Thank you.
Okay.
Are they also emptying the barrels that already exist on the common?
Yes.
They currently are, yes.
Those
No, I mean,
Chris is the DPW does.
Yeah.
Yes.
So come back with us in 2 weeks. Give us
Okay.
Yeah, no, I didn't know if UMM, is that what we call it?
UMM, United Materials Management.
Yeah.
Can we just clarify that point, Dave and Chris? I don't know best to answer. Who empties the barrels on the common?
The DPW does.
DPW.
And you'll continue to do that?
We continue to do that.
Okay, all right.
We've been doing it every day since this started. Yep.
Fair enough. Okay, so that's a non-issue.
Because they don't have to lift a barrel.
Exactly.
They're pulling trash bags out of it.
So the other thing is, so the only thing we're really talking about here are the fields, the ball fields, the parks, etc. Correct?
Right.
Yes.
Come back in front of us in 2 weeks. We'll put you on the agenda, And if we feel we need more, we'll have Chris talk with Anthony, and we'll get more. And maybe even if you come
guys
back.
can coordinate with Chris where you feel the locations are
Absolutely.
are best.
Absolutely.
And you, Doug, with Payson.
Sure.
Yeah. That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys, appreciate it. And thanks to UMM, by the way, for the generous
Yeah.
offer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really,
That's
really
great.
nice offer. It's really, thank you to them. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Bill, town manager transfer and reserve fund transfers?
Yeah, so you have before you the transfers that we're making a request. So this year the memo is in the packet as well. Do you want me to dispense with the reading of the memo, just or would you like me to go through it? It's up to you.
I'm good with you dispensing with it.
Okay, so it's pretty self-explanatory. What's good news about this is that we are not making any reserve fund transfers this year. I can't ever remember that in 37 years that we didn't make a reserve fund transfer in any community. So I'm really pleased with that. Last year we transferred just out of the town manager transfers $184,000. This year it's $140,000, and on top of that we transferred the full $75,000 to the reserve fund as well. So this year was a significantly reduced amount. Most of the money is actually coming from within the various departments. I think there were the larger ones, the workers' comp, unemployment issues, we actually transferred from police salaries because we had a pretty substantial surplus in police salaries. But even finance, finance is at the end of the day still turning back $60,000 from their budget this year as compared to a previous year. So it's actually good news. Most of the departments are going to be actually turning back money. So that means that we're still, despite all these changes, we're just using existing funds within existing budgets for the most part, except for, I believe it's unemployment, the workers' comp, and I think there was one other line. That was, I think it was maybe the inspections line. But the rest of those were actually group insurance. Group insurance. And so those three came out of the police account, with the rest of them were being transferred internally within the department, under department lines.
Any questions from the board?
No.
Okay. All right, Steph, you want to read the motion?
Yeah. Motion to approve the proposed town manager transfers as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. All right, I think I saw, did I see Frank outside?
Frank is here, but did you want to take Linda first, because she should be real quick, and I think we can.
She's next, yeah. Sorry, Frank, you're getting bumped 5 more minutes.
Shouldn't take long, Frank.
It's
It's for a good cause, Frank.
It's for a good cause. All right. Go ahead, Linda.
So, came before you a couple times now, but I updated it. Bill and I spoke about a few things. I've given you the layout of how we see it, the things that we're going to change, so you guys have it to look at, right?
Yep, we do. Everybody comfortable with it? Anybody have any questions for Linda?
The only question I have is just how does the state piece transfer, and it's kind of more just educational for me?
It doesn't, because we're not going to go through the state, because we're going to wait to phase 3.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
like the stadium,
Yeah.
because the state piece wouldn't be.
So it just doesn't even come into play? We're just
wouldn't be,
voting. Okay.
right.
No, in fact,
A free concert, you know.
what is happening right now is, on the common, is consistent with what's happening pretty much across the state. We did check with a couple other towns in that case, and found out that there is a lot of places that just not allowing any activities at all on their commons right now. But phase 3 should allow us to loosen that up, and we don't anticipate a huge crowd on there. I think Linda's plan is it's actually a pretty good spacing program.
Yeah,
And she's come up with the idea of using flags, which they will put out before the event occurs. So I think, if we can do it, I think it's a great thing, because it stays with the tradition, the summer tradition, and I think a lot of people do enjoy it.
I think that phase 3 is probably going to open up like on the 6th.
Right, it has to be 2 weeks from when they just, which was
Right, so
2 weeks from yesterday.
Straight from yesterday, so
So,
I
so
think it would be,
that's the earliest it could actually happen.
right.
So is that July 2nd date then with?
Yeah, we will move that to the bottom of the, you know, we'll,
So the motion would be that it's approved, subject to the Commonwealth's reopening of Phase 3.
unless, you know, I just have people bring up signs that say, bring our concerts back, and a little rally, and
Yeah, a little rally.
maybe I'll have a little entertainment.
Yeah, there you go.
You should probably tell people to carry out their trash too. I noticed that on your thing about the trash barrels.
I made sure that they use the trash barrels, and I was like, oh, God, don't tell me that you're not gonna have the trash barrels.
You're going to have the bat, you're okay on the common, okay.
There won't be that much trash, right, because we don't have concessions or anything, but.
And sometimes the ice cream truck would pull up or anything. Any concerns there with that piece? Like that's
That has
that's
nothing to do with me.
okay.
That's purely public health.
Let you
Okay.
know that.
Okay.
Public health issues that license, so.
One band question, the band's all excited to do this, or any?
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably the only gig that they've had, you know.
Yeah.
Most of the bands are like, anything, you know,
Yeah,
they're bugging the chairman big time, but, yeah.
Okay.
And thank you for putting out a layout. I think that was important. I know.
It's pretty easy.
It was, but
I
thank
mean,
you.
anybody who hasn't seen a comment and, you know. So,
Do we have a motion?
We do have a motion.
I think it probably has to say, as amended, because I do believe you're right, Leah, you already approved my thing, so it has to be as amended with,
Yep, she put pending the start of Phase 3. That was your concern, right?
Okay.
Yep. All right, motion to approve the Foxborough J.C.'s application to use the town common for a summer concert series on July 2nd is not approved. July 9th, July 15th, July 23rd, July 30th, August 6th, and August 13th, pending the start of Phase 3 as determined by the Commonwealth.
yeah, can you just take the dates out, because if it starts later than that, we want to obviously use the common for, you know, the date, not those, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, not the
Like,
specific
obviously, it's gonna
dates.
bump everything down another week, so it'll be later in August that we finish.
Yep. Okay.
Starting no
It's
earlier
just
than the start of
Thursdays.
Phase 3.
Yeah,
Sure,
Thursdays.
absolutely.
Thursday night.
Yep.
Summer.
We need ending dates, we put them on our town common if other people are going to be booking the common as well, or allowing that, like other town departments.
So we
So
want an
add two
ending date?
weeks to it then, please, because of rain dates then.
Yeah.
Please, would say it one more time, Linda?
So add 2 weeks, so if it,
Okay.
just trying to see.
So it would normally then do
August, yeah, it's Thursdays through August 27th.
27, okay.
Yep.
And this is where I think we don't have these motions in here, so staff may have it on a paper, but when we're looking at things, I think it's helpful to have the motion that we're voting on, so that when we're looking at the applications, we know what it is. So I know it's on her paper, but just know that we don't have visibility to that, to know, like, I would have known the Phase 3. Or I would have known it was Phase 3 if it was in here. So, you know, just kind of going back to, it's helpful if the draft motion that's
So
Oh,
on the paper is in here.
we'll add that.
Yeah.
We can add that.
I'd like to check and see what visibility that you have as.
Okay. Yeah, some of them I can see, and then some of them I can't. It kind of goes in and out.
Okay. Motion to approve the Foxborough J.C.'s application to use the town common for a summer concert series pending the start of Phase 3 as determined by the Commonwealth, all Thursday nights up until August 27th. I just kind of reworded it a little bit. Is that okay?
Second.
Fine.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Good.
Thanks,
Thank
Linda.
you,
Thank
Linda.
you.
Thanks for all the work you
Good luck,
put into it,
Linda.
Linda.
Good luck.
Well, going backwards, it was suggested that we bring up and discuss a little bit the 2020 annual town meeting and warrant. Just as a little bit of background that Bill and I had discussed, I think it is important going forward that we have a little subcommittee get together, maybe come up with a protocol going forward on, you know, responsibilities, deadlines, dates, check, double check, and going forward. My thought initially would be, you know, me, Bill, Mike, Frank, and Bob get together and just talk a little bit about our protocols going forward.
Maybe George.
Maybe George too, yeah, absolutely.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think one of the things that it is particularly important is, and I think actually I put together a chart today looking at that to see whose responsibilities were where. And it's actually quite interesting because there are gaps in the process that need to be filled in, and it's unclear as to where the steps begin and where they end, that type of thing. So I think there's been a lot of the challenge we faced in this past year was that we suddenly realized that everybody in the room, everybody in our office was new, everybody in finance was new, and as a result, there was several pieces of this that were responsible to people that have never done it before. So I think there was, including some of it was stuff that I didn't really deal with on a regular basis either, to be honest with you. It was more a process that evolved over the years from finance, and finance a lot of times took the lead on doing a lot of the pieces of it, and particularly the numbers. And so that part of it was left out unintentionally this year, and clearly something that we want to try and fix as a process. So the really important thing, I think, is to have a procedure that everybody follows and signs off on, and so that and if we need to change it, we can fix it again, to go forward from there and fix it so that it doesn't become an issue going forward. So that in case there is changes in personnel, somebody can still pick up that document and say, here's how we do it. And I think following the history that's been done here, I mean, I'm not here to argue the laws or the debate the history or anything like that. It's just purely a process issue that was really, it was not documented anywhere, so it was not. I mean, it's documented to a degree in terms of bylaws and the special act and things of that nature, but in terms of actually steps, in terms of who goes to where and who's responsible for what, I think that needs to be laid out, and so it's very specific as to how it should be done. Yeah.
Right.
All right, well, seeing how I'm the one that asked for this to be on the agenda, what I did want to say was, I thought it was better that we had the discussion now, fresh, while you know, we're just off town meeting. You know, when I put my request in, I know initially it was no, that we weren't going to put this on, so I'm kind of glad that we changed our mind, because I think everybody needs to know what happened, because you know, Frank explaining at town meeting was great, but I don't think people really knew what had gone on, what the consequences could have been. I think between administration and Frank, you guys found a good way to say, okay, what's best for the town and move forward. But you know, I don't know if people could have gotten up, could have made a motion that town meeting, you know, and we got all these people to come out. And we were so worried about the quorum, and so anyhow, that was what was driving me, to see if we could get this all out in the open, make sure we all realize what went on. Not so much a finger point, you know, a mistake was made, but I think we as a group need to take, and you know, technically I wasn't part of that warrant, but the night of town meeting, I was a member of the Board of Selectmen, so I feel like I have to take responsibility too, and I want to make sure that I know what happened, and we'll do our best for it not to happen again. So I guess I already, like in my mind, I said I was just going to say to Frank, tell us what happened, so maybe we can understand it, and the people watching, if that's appropriate.
Well, I think my thought is moving forward. We realize some mistakes were made, and I don't want to certainly make those mistakes again, or not mistakes, just simple overlooking certain things that should have been overlooked. I don't necessarily think now we need to go back and rehash it all. I think we did at town meeting. Frank did a great job at town meeting explaining the situation. I think to everybody there's approval. They understood what was going on. I don't think we have to necessarily go through it all again today.
I'll be honest with you, Doc. People didn't understand what was going on. I mean, I understood a little bit, maybe because of my experience on AdCom and having a little bit of a, but some of it I was a little confused myself. And people were asking me afterwards, what was Frank talking about? What wasn't posted? So I think maybe if you understood it, that's great, and probably people sitting here understood it better than the people sitting at town meeting, but I had at least a half a dozen people saying that I didn't really understand what was going on. So I don't know if nobody else asked you, that's fine, but I had, like I said, a good half dozen people ask me, what was going on at town meeting? I couldn't really understand. And so I think, I'm respectfully going to say that I think you're wrong. I don't think people really, and not at any fault of Frank's, because I was trying to follow it. I just think that people who don't know the process didn't understand it. No fault of Frank's explaining it, and you probably understood it more than other people would because you understand the process a little bit. But I think there was a lot of confusion that night.
But I don't think going through it again tonight will clear up any of the confusion, because so much of what went on was procedural. Or do you disagree with me, Frank?
You could call it that. If I could, there were two main issues that came across to me on this whole thing. One was the review of the warrant and the motions before they were given out and before the warrant was really, before it was signed and posted. When I looked at the warrant, it immediately jumped out at me that Articles 4 and 5 had no numbers in it, which in my opinion is required. First thing I did was call the town clerk, Bob Cutler, to see if maybe the one that was downloaded on the website for some reason didn't have the budget, the operating budget and the CIP. I asked Bob to go get the posted one. He asked me why. I go, just go get it and take a look at it for me. He got it. He said, sure. I go, look at 4 and 5. And right away, Bob said, Frank, there's no budgets here to vote on. So I think there was a lack of review there, as with also the motions. There were some issues with the motions. The original Article 4 motion had no budget in it. It had the funding sources, the revenue, but it didn't have the expenses. So the review before these things, I think, was a real issue for me with regard to that. The second thing is the issue with town council. I did my own review, made my determination. Town council came opposite of me, and it was really told to me that I had to abide by what town council says, which is not my job. His is an opinion. Town council is one individual's opinion. And I was told that I had to follow it. And I said, I'm not. I was elected to be the town moderator to make sure a town meeting, flowed as smoothly, my words, as possible, efficiently, courteously, but also what's required under the laws and the bylaws. So that was the second thing that really bothered me through this whole process. With regard to setting up a committee or a working group or whatever to do that's fine. But at the end of the day, both the warrant and the motions really should be reviewed thoroughly before they're sent out. And then at that point, especially the motion typically were sent to me and town council. Typically at the same time, we both go through it and then we talk about it. That didn't happen this time until the very end. It was actually sent to the advisory committee for the first time ever for review. They usually get their motions for the first time at town meeting. So, setting up a committee to make sure things run smoothly is great, but I think there's really got to be good oversight and review before going on.
because there were other issues within the warrant that we found out once we started digging into it, with regard to things being in 2 articles and things like that, that should have been caught also. We caught it on the second review. But at the end of the day, I think what Mark was saying is, and Bill was saying, that we got through town meeting as efficiently as we could, try to explain everything to town meeting members and get everything done, so we didn't have to go back. And that's always my goal. So, if you want, I can go over the issues. I've sent you one of my memos with regard to my position. I didn't get to write another memo on the other side, but I think everyone knew how I felt with regard to that. But, I think it's very important that these things are reviewed, because if anyone ever sues the town over the warrant, if there's issues, the town, could be liable for something. Now, many of you may not know, I think Ed may know this, the original zoning for the town of Foxborough was thrown out in court because of a posting issue. And it lost in court because of a posting issue. Now, we're going down back decades. So it can happen. So, we really want to review that document as thoroughly as possible before it's signed, and then go over the motions as
and I think having a protocol set up.
Yeah, I mean, it all boils down to teamwork. We're all one town, one team, and everybody needs to, check and double check, and if, maybe Bill should have said, hey, Frank, Randy used to do this, he's not here, does this look good? But that's what it comes down to, total teamwork. And we just need to have that going forward.
Absolutely, Chris.
Yeah, well, for me, it was probably being new. I mean, you guys have all been through this process at this side, and so to get conflicting, an email from what kind of made me ask for this is when Frank, sent an email to the board saying, in his opinion, that town meeting wasn't valid.
No, I never said that.
Oh, wait, not valid.
No.
All right, I'm glad you're here.
The second warrant that was issued was invalid because of the timing.
The warrant wasn't valid. I'm glad you're sitting there.
So we said
yeah, don't want to put words in your mouth, Frank. So when I hear those words from me, I'm like, well, let's find out. Let's find out what went wrong. For me, it's not about pointing fingers at anybody, Chris. Like you said, I mean, there's lots of moving pieces to this, and we should know. Frank has an opinion.
With 256 people in that room that had an opinion.
Yeah.
And I mean, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but I mean, we rely on town council for a lot of things other than this. And I mean, we as a board, I think, usually 99.9% would always side with town council's opinion.
Yeah.
Because that's what we pay them for too.
Yeah.
So.
I just think it was, I mean, in law isn't always black and white. Like Frank says, different attorney, he had an opinion, town council did. Now, for me, the town council only cited state statute. She didn't touch our town bylaws. And Frank was talking about town bylaws. And the fact that he's the moderator, for me, I might have put a little more weight, with no disrespect to town council, I might have put a little more weight into what Frank had to say, because he's the moderator. This is what he does. I just didn't hear town council speak about our town bylaws. And so, yeah, at the end of the day, it still might be conflicted. Town council could be sitting here and they'd stand by what they said. Frank is going to stand by what he said. And yeah, maybe there isn't a right or wrong. It's a difference of opinion. But for me, it was very conflicting, because for next year, so yeah.
That's why for next year,
Yeah.
I think we should get together.
Yeah, and I talked to Bill about this actually the day after. I mean, the biggest thing to boil the ocean for me is we're always working at a mile a minute. Someone's always going to be turned over. There's always going to be a fire drill that comes up. And instead of us kind of pushing something out fast at the last minute, we have to stop and slow down and follow every step and make sure that that protocol is set up, because there's always going to be, you know, whether it's COVID-19 or, you know, the person that did this last year just left, or this person retired or is out, something's going to come up. So we just need to have the protocol. We need to have the built-in time and discipline to go through the right steps. And I think we, you know, do need to have a committee to look at that, put it in writing, and then follow the checklist. So the biggest thing I think we need to determine, when will we have this done? I don't want to see like fall meeting creep up on us again and we haven't got around to it because X, Y, and Z came up. I think we just need to hold ourselves accountable, you know, and maybe, you know, look at, is it the same people that worked on it? You know, like, do we need some fresh eyes?
I think in the beginning we should have the same, who I suggested. But absolutely we could have the rest of the board look at it before anything. It's just a policy.
Right.
And
it's a procedure. It's a procedure. Yeah, more procedure.
And we did some great things. We had the, you know, if by chance we had a plan, if we didn't have a quorum, we had a plan in place. We had a signing off on, you know, if by chance the budget wasn't passed, whether it was because of the quorum or just it didn't pass.
Do the 112.
We had the 112th in place. We did some, being pushed forward with the COVID and dates coming so close to the end of our fiscal year. We did some great things too, to have ourselves set up to carry on business. So it's not all about that everything was, you know, a debacle by any means. We did some great things.
So this, when this happened at town meeting, you know, the next day, Mike and I had a conversation about, okay, what can we do differently? And because we don't sit back and just watch and just say, okay, it's somebody else's problem. It's our problem. It's our issue. So we said, okay, where are the single points of failure in the process? And so, in the first thing that came off the bandwagon for me was, there's no written procedure for this. It's in everybody's minds, it's everybody's memories, how we do things, but there's no written procedure as to who gets what, whose responsibility it is for each thing. So I actually did a chart, a RACI chart today about that. And it's actually quite interesting to see that, because there were multiple steps along the way. And if any one position fails in that process, it could end up in the same thing that happened this past year. And unfortunately this year, there were multiple areas where I could have failed because people simply weren't used to doing it the way we do it here in Foxborough. And that's something that's also really important here. Foxborough has a way of doing it that's different from other places. It's just a fact. So that means that we have to be familiar with the way things are done here, as well as and follow the traditions that we have here. And we have a 60-year tradition of doing it a certain way, and so we follow that. We also make sure that it's posted with the right notifications and with the right time frames. And by the way, there are uniquenesses to Foxborough that other places don't have in terms of how we refer to a meeting. I mean, quite honestly, I'm not used to seeing where the town meeting starts when the election starts. It's usually a separate, there's either a separate warrant, or it's included in this one warrant, and this is one warrant instead of having two warrants.
I was shocked when Bob Cutler said it. I was like, wow, that's interesting.
That's actually not that uncommon, because state statute allows it.
It definitely allows it. There's no question about that.
And we've done it like that forever, though, so,
yeah,
you know.
But I think that, but in terms of how it came up as an issue this year, it never became an issue up until now, because we posted so early in the process. Don't forget, we posted this thing back in beginning of May. Okay, so I think, unfortunately, it didn't get picked up until late in process, like the 2 weeks before, in the first week in June. So that being the case, that's a process issue. That means that we have to have a checklist. Everybody has to, and we have to constantly review that checklist and make sure that every piece is done properly.
And let's,
that's it.
And let's get that meeting in July. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get together in July.
Yeah, I'm ready to begin tomorrow.
That checklist
and fall would be a good dry run to do this, where the budget's not in there, you know, to kind of put this process in place, iron it out, see what changes need to be made, so that by the time we roll into Springtown meeting, you know, we've made some good progress.
We'll do it early July. We'll have my secretary call your secretary, and
We'll set it up.
together.
We're looking at each other.
I don't have one, and neither do you.
Let's check calendars right now.
If I could just say one thing about the town council's opinion and all that, and I don't take it lightly, but at the beginning of town meeting, town council came up to me and wanted to talk about the different warrant articles. And she told me the first 3 warrant articles required a 50% vote. I had to explain to her the first 3 warrant articles are not voted. You know, she wasn't informed. She told me that Article 4, the operating budget, required a 2/3 vote. I told her, no, it's only 50%. She was insistent that was 2/3. And I said, no. And she told me that I had to follow town council. At that point, I said, no, I don't. And I explained to her, the only time it would require 2/3 is borrowing. Now, she had a piece of paper in front of her, and she kept referring to it. I go, do you mind if I look at that? And she said, no, you can't look at it. She finally looked at it a little harder and realized that the email, which I'm assuming came from another attorney, said that if there's any borrowing, it requires 2/3. And the 2/3 just happened to be bolded. And that's what she said. But, you know, they are, you know, they can be incorrect at times. And there are many court cases that show it. And there are many court cases where one town board is suing another town board. So you got 2 different town councils that disagree with each other. The second is, if you ask town council to review reconsideration in Foxborough, Mark, you know how reconsideration works, right? What happens if somebody asks for reconsideration and it's defeated?
They can't bring it up again.
Can't bring it up again.
That is correct. If you look in our bylaw, that is nowhere in our bylaw. If you look in the town meeting, it's nowhere in there. As a matter of fact, it says something absolutely different than that, that you can bring it up as many times as the moderator will allow. But it goes back to when town meeting was run under Cushing's parliamentary. Cushing's is the name of the book for parliamentary order. And you had to really look in there to find it in there, because I had to ask the old moderator where it really was in there. And that's something that's been continued by the moderator previous to me and myself, because that is what's the tradition here in town meeting. But if you ask town council just to review it, when can reconsideration happen? You'd say it can happen as many times as you want for the first hour. After that, requires 2/3. A continued meeting, you have to file something with the town clerk. And if you said, well, if somebody asks it once and gets defeated, can it come up again? He'll say yes. But that's not looking at Foxborough. Every town is different. Every town is run different. They have different bylaws. They read them differently. You know, I've been doing municipal work, you know, since the very early 90s. And each town, whether it's zoning or general bylaws, you read them, but then you also go talk to the people that interpret it. And, you know, I think that's something that is not being considered by our town council presently. I've had other issues with them with regard to how things are read. And that's one of the things that was a real issue with me through this whole thing. Again, 2 things. You know, proper review of the warrant and the motions, but also town council. And I just thought I'd express that to you guys tonight.
Thank you.
Are there maybe some bylaws we need to look at too then?
Well,
like to get things in writing as part of that? Okay.
We're going to bring it all up.
Yeah.
Sure.
We'll bring it all up. Absolutely. Everything will be on the table. Great. Thank you, Frank.
All right.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. Thanks, Frank.
And I'll say one thing. I was very impressed with town meeting, with the number of people we got.
Oh.
And the, you know, the town
That was a
in
bigger
general.
crowd than we
I was
had
very
last year.
impressed.
Just as a quick side note, we had a meeting and we were running a little bit late and I couldn't see the hallway from where I was sitting. I said, we got to move this right along. And someone close to the door said, I think it was you, Leah.
I think
the line's already out, yeah.
Line going out to the parking lot. It was great.
I was very happy.
It was great. Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. We skipped that already. We did that. Mike, town manager's update.
I gave mine earlier. I'm good.
Awesome. Good. Like that.
How about the contracts that were delayed due to COVID-19, like the steel workers? Any
Sure.
update there? That's
Go ahead, yeah.
Sure, we're going to be going back to work on steelworkers and police. We're hoping that we can get to a point where we can get the bargaining teams face to face, because it's, you know, some of this stuff you can do through virtual. Negotiating is something that really should be done at the table. So that's what we're trying to get to, and bring it back to fall town meeting for both those contracts.
Thank you. Bill?
So just a couple things for you. Some good news is that we received approval, interesting enough, the day right after town meeting for a $1 million grant from the CARES Act, which was significant for us. We had placed a request for $1 million and we got approval for $1 million. So I'm really grateful to all the department heads, all the work that Marie Almodova did as the Director of Finance, and pulled everything together, and we got approval actually pretty quickly too. I was amazed that we just submitted it like within, I think it was within 10 days that we got approval of that. So that was pretty extraordinary. I've never seen it turn around that quick.
I signed it one day and it seemed like we got it 10 days later.
Exactly. So it was good. So that was really good news, and that puts us in a better position to end the fiscal year as well, with that money coming in. So that, and the fact they're going to give it to it, the money's actually in our coffers now. We actually have it.
And they made an announcement at school committee last night specifically about technology and
Right.
how it relates to the CARES Act and all that. So.
Right. And so a good chunk of that money was for technology related, for school related expenses.
How much?
About 700,000.
Yeah.
Of that,
And then 300 for
operational. Yeah, operational stuff.
They announced the 1-to-1 last night.
Yeah.
So is that money that can be used at your discretion, Bill, or is it earmarked for certain things?
Well, we've identified it for, we had to, the way we submitted it was that it had to be expenses broken down for each of the various departments. And so we have to spend it on those types of expenses. So it's not just.
It's COVID related.
It's COVID related. It's COVID related.
So things that were affected by the COVID.
Right, and we made the case, the trades we could maybe use. Well, you know, we still have another $500,000 that we can look at for next fiscal year. So that's also a plus there. But having said that, anything that was COVID related. So we were able to make the case that it was COVID related for the 1-to-1 scenario, because obviously that was affecting a lot of kids. And also we had also applied for another grant program when that was sort of a preemption, that if you hadn't applied for the other grant program, you couldn't apply for that money. So we had already done that.
Mm-hmm.
So that put us in a good position.
It was came from state?
This came from federal. This was federal money. This was federal money. This was federal money. We were awarded about a $1.5 million grant, and that's based on population, by the way. That's how it's determined.
Great.
So it's good news.
Does that have anything to do with what Paige was talking about a month or so ago about when businesses reach out with, or was that a separate like?
That was part of the PPP program, the payroll protection program.
Okay.
That was done through the banks.
Yeah, there's a lot of CARES.
That was small businesses with 5 or less
Yeah.
employees, including the owner.
Yeah, yeah.
That was something different.
A different program. That came through the EDA, I believe, Economic Development Administration. So this one is, so the next one is the railroad crossings at Cocasset and Mechanic. You notice that there were gates being put in, which is great news, that we're going to have gates on both those locations, both those crossings. The crossings, that work is expected to be done within the next week, possibly by, I think by next Friday, Chris, or this week, this Friday, Chris. We think the work will be done.
They're trying to get it done this week.
Okay. All right.
They're trying to get through the signal work this week.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then the rest of it's going to be done, well, probably by the end of the summer, which means there will be new rails installed at the crossings, and the concrete padding will be done in the middle of the tracks, so that it'll be nice and smooth, so it'll be nice, easy crossing. I'm surprised they actually put the Cocasset one in, because that's a long crossing. It covers actually a couple streets.
Yeah, I think they've got like 4 or 5 gates.
Yeah, so they had to do an interesting design of putting those gates in. And so, Chris, you're on. So you want to add to that at all?
Sure. So they actually not only include gates for the street, but they all 4 both locations include pedestrian gates for the sidewalks as well. So these two crossings were done with safety money that the state had, and that's why they did the upgrade with the gates and new signals. Whereas the other three that were done a couple of years ago were just regular maintenance money that they had. So they making that improvement, and end of the summer, hopefully before school starts, they'll have the tracks done themselves.
Can you just clarify too, because there's a lot of talk, people think because there's a gate now there's no horn, just to clarify that that does not impact the horn, just because we have a gate, there's still a horn, no change.
No, we've had a request to look at that possibility, but not in those locations. But I will say that before that happens, we have to do an evaluation. It has to be a study performed, and Chris has been looking at that possibility but we have to secure some money for that as well, because that's going to be an expense, an engineering expense that we have to incur, and that's just to determine if in fact it's viable at that location. And we're looking at the Spring Street location was a quiet zone, and the reason why it has to be determined is because the number of times the train goes there is a factor, and the number of times the whistle goes off, and I think that's something that they have to evaluate in order to determine if it's viable to have that happen. And then last but not least, actually two things. First, less complicated thing is that town reports are available in case anybody's looking for one. They were actually available at town meeting this year, and so I want to thank Christina for the work that she did on that. And and we're gonna so that will be, they are available. We've got about 750 copies. 700 copies that are available, and will be made some available to the library and other locations, and we'll see if people can want to buy and pick them up. It'll also be added to the town's website as well. So, and then finally the water restriction, and and this is something that Chris had asked me to speak about tonight in the water department, and it says that Foxboro DPW instituted a full water ban about 4 weeks ago on May 27th after a major water break. After 2 weeks of the ban, the reserves in the water system were recovering. The department began using 2 new wells with temporary connections in order to increase our capacity from 2.4 million gallons per day to 2.75 million gallons per day. The intention of this was to completely refill the reserves and to continue to have the ability to refill every night. Unfortunately, this has not been the case. Over the last 2 weeks, we have seen water use spike to over 2.8 million gallons per day. Along with the increase in the use and has been the inability to refill the Hill Street tank, which provides not only the reserves for peak hour use, but also for pressure throughout the system, including firefighting. The permanent fix is coming later this summer. However, we need residents to follow the ban that is currently in place. If the water use continues on this path, there will be insufficient water and pressure for life safety purposes. Information on what is and is not allowed can be found on the town website and DPW Facebook page. And I think the key point here is that we're in the middle of a very dry period right now. We haven't seen rain in a couple weeks now, and as a result, things are very dry. And of course, a lot of people are watering their lawns. Well, we have a water ban. You shouldn't be out watering your lawns, and I think that's and what's happening a lot of times. Those people have been setting their sprinklers to go off in the middle of the night, so people don't see them watering, and as a result, we were seeing the tanks drop rather significantly during the middle of the night, and then by the next morning, we see the after effect of that. So I think the concern is two. One is if we need water for safety purposes, for fire safety suppression. We also need water for sanitation purposes. And if we don't maintain the levels of water that we need, then that could come into question over the next several weeks if this trend continues. I think that the message that we want to give to people, and I'll have Chris weigh in a second. The message is this: don't water your lawns right now. Please, we ask that you don't do that, given the fact that the grass goes dormant. It will not die. It will just go dormant, and it will recover once the conditions improve and into the fall. We also have a case where we will be seeing some rain, we think, over the next few days, but hopefully that will help. But that doesn't mean we continue to start watering the lawns right after that. The key is to really take heed to this, because it becomes this public safety issue if people don't pay attention to it. or they ignore it. And that's also going to mean that we're going to have to do a better job of policing it as neighbors and residents. If people see it going on, they should report it to the water department and let them know, so that people can, that can be followed up on. Because quite honestly, it's going to come to a point where more stricter measures are going to have to be put in place, and people just simply won't like that. So, Chris, you want to follow up on that? Do you have any further?
Chris, can I ask you one question before you get to it? When we were talking about the railroad crossing, and you said the tracks, do you mean they're going to finally fix where the bumps are? Is that what you meant when you tracks?
Yes. Yes.
All right, awesome. Yes. Thank you.
It's like North Street.
Yeah, thanks.
So,
yeah. So in regards to the water, I did type that out for Bill earlier, and it is a serious situation right now. There are people in town that we lose another foot in that tank, they're going to start to have pressure issues in their upstairs bathrooms. So that's where we are right now. Unfortunately, we haven't seen rain in 2.5 weeks, and even that was a quick downpour. Dumped a lot of water, but it was a quick downpour, and we didn't see much rain before that. So across the state, we're actually seeing all staff gauge levels, which is any town that has a water management permit has staff gauge in various rivers throughout their town. And when those rivers reach a certain level, they have to start reducing usage, which means they're all putting water bans and water restrictions in place. So I know we started out the year, as we do every year, with a 2-day-a-week restriction, and we unfortunately had to jump to the ban early on. We are working as fast as we can. Coronavirus did not help us with the 4 brand new wells on Pumping Station Road. They were supposed to be online right about now. Those 4 wells will be able to pump at peak almost 2 million gallons a day, which, like Bill said, we're using 2.8 right now. So we know that it's an irrigation issue. It's a nighttime watering issue, because from the hours of 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., we're pumping about 900,000 gallons of water into the system, and we're not recovering. So that means that 900,000 gallons we're using in that 8-hour span is all going out through the pipes and onto the lawns, through people's houses. So this is a serious thing, and I hope that we're going to spread the word as much as we can. This was just another opportunity tonight to help spread that word that we are in a serious spot right now. We do have a permanent fix coming, and we just need another 2 months of patience from the residents and the customers in the system.
Hey, Chris, one clarifying question. I know you could use a handheld hose from like 6 to 9 o'clock at night. Is that out now, or can you still do that?
If you don't need to, I would, I advise people not to do it right now.
Okay.
We just made, like Bill said, we made another fix actually this morning, just to try to get another 50 gallons a minute out of a well. So we're trying to squeeze every drop we can out of the ground. Unfortunately, we're in a spot right now where we're kind of stuck at just shy of 2.8, and every time we use more than that in a day, it's a problem.
Probably doesn't help that everyone's like filling up kiddie pools and buying Intex pools, and you can't even find those right now. It's so hot,
Well, the other thing you think of, like, okay, what would happen if we weren't in the COVID, and because the schools have been closed down, so they're not using water. Buildings have been at half capacity; they're not using water. So,
no stadium events.
No stadium events.
But to that point, everybody's home all day long.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Using
they're not sending them to camps out of town.
Yeah.
They're home. And when it's 85 degrees for, going on, we're looking at 2 or 3 weeks in a row now. That's when people get bored, kick the kids outside. I got 2 myself. You kick them outside and sometimes let them fend for themselves. But that's part of the problem too, is that everybody's
full disclosure, I put a brand new lawn in front and back this year. I had been watering, and I will stop as of right now.
My lawn's brown, Chris.
Mine is too.
Mine's full of crabgrass.
Yeah. So quick question. Obviously, I don't even know where I found out about the water ban, whether it was driving uptown, seeing the sign, at a meeting, our meeting, just hearing talk. So one of my neighbors I'm walking the dog, going up the street, and he's standing out there, and the sprinkler's going. This is about 2 weeks ago, man. So I very nicely, said to him, I said, do you know that we're on a water ban? I kind of said it and said, you know something? If they drive around and catch you, because, and he was like, oh my God, I had no idea. Immediately went over. Now, whether he was telling me the truth or not, I don't know. But if it's someone who doesn't get the report and this is kind of a little bit of an older couple, they don't have, kids, they're not, I don't know if they've seen uptown. Have we sent anything out in the mail? I don't know if I saw anything and I just knew, so I did, kind of ignored it. Is there, hopefully some people will watch this or word of mouth. Is there any way you can think of that's good to get the word out?
So we've looked at those options. We actually, what's gonna confuse people, and I'd like to clarify that as you bring that up. We have our consumer confidence report that the Bob Worley, the water superintendent, has been working on for the last month. It actually went out to print and is currently at the mail, getting ready to be mailed out. Unfortunately, when it went to the printer, it was when we had 2-day-a-week watering restrictions. So if people actually get that and look at that, that's something that's going to be confusing them, because they're going to see something that we put together well over a month ago has different restrictions than the full ban that we currently have. It is something where this looks like it's going to be a long-term thing. We're going to look at it probably through, middle to end of August, where this is going to be a problem. We'll look at doing a mailer to everybody in town and taking that on.
You know what I might do too? I might mention to our homeowners association, we can do email blasts. So it'd be very easy, at least for Summerfield, Cannon Forge, you're talking 300 some odd homes there. Maybe I'll ask them to blast it. It'll help.
But that brings up a good point. This is a public safety issue. What about a reverse 911?
Yeah.
That's a good idea. It's free.
This is public safety. This is fire safety.
Or,
maybe.
Going back to, I know it doesn't help today, but building up every department, like subscribe and building up email lists. Like, I know we don't have those today, but we really need to work towards a goal to get people to subscribe to stuff so that we do have email address that we can kick stuff out.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Bill. You all set?
I'm all set.
All right. Selectmen's update. Next week, we're going to have a little meeting talking about managers' goal submissions. I think everybody submitted manager goals. I think Leah gets an A++ for her.
I spent a lot of time on this.
Triple plus. Telling you, A++.
And my thought is, if we land in those 4 buckets with those things underneath, that could even tie into our review process. So instead of having a generic things that don't apply, this becomes not only the goals, but the review and all that.
Second thing I thought of was exactly what you just said. Part of the review process, seeing how we work that in. That really was. And I submitted 3 goals. I think they were all included in.
Well, I was going to say, anything that wasn't, I think I found a spot under one of the 4 buckets that it would fit.
And I apologize for not getting mine in, but when I saw the ones that are in here, they're all
stuff that you want to do anyway.
it's all
there.
It's all right there.
Almost to the point where I would like for you next week to go over it.
Yeah, and I can, if you can send me this in Word, not PDF, I can make sure that everything matches up to one of the others, and then hopefully that meeting on the 30th can be quick.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's good. That's great. Outstanding job, Leah.
Thanks.
Outstanding. Anybody else have anything from Selectmen's update?
I just had one thing, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be here next week, so I'll just kind of mention it now. But Paige and I have been working a lot with the Foxborough Common Business Collaborative and the wayfinding, and sidetracked a little bit by COVID-19. But those banners are going to be going up on the Common that are sponsored by the Foxborough Common Business Collaborative. There was some back and forth between historical; they have to weigh in before we approve them. I had hoped to have a sample of them here tonight, but we just weren't able to get it, so it will be next week. So if we can make sure we reserve a spot on the agenda for that, we'll either bring in a sample if we can get one, or have it for you guys. But we do have to approve those banners, so a business would pay $100, it would say, welcome to Foxborough Common, it has Memorial Hall, and it would have their business logo. And those would welcome people in. I know Dave already agreed. I talked to Chris about, getting the banners up and then stay up for maybe 6 months, would rotate them, but just know that that one's coming next week if I'm not here.
So the Board of Selectmen has to approve the actual banner.
Right, just like we did the wayfinding signs, remember?
You mean 2 weeks?
Yes, 2 weeks, next meeting, yep.
Okay.
And the question that may come up is, did historical weigh in? And that's kind of what we've been going back and forth right now on, and the wayfinding committee did weigh in as well. So it's been a long process, but I think we're ready.
I mean, we do have an official meeting next week that you'll be at. Do you want to include that?
If I can get a sample.
Okay, so let us know by Thursday.
Yeah.
Does historical already give the thumbs up?
Historic, yeah, we've been going back and forth on the coloring of Memorial Hall, so that's all done. I think we landed, we should be all good. So we did spend a lot of time going back and forth with historical. That was most of the delay at the end.
Okay, great, thank you.
And they'll look really nice it will welcome you into Foxborough Common. And businesses that are or are not part of the Foxborough Business Collaborative, although I encourage them to join, can sponsor a banner as well.
Great. Any other Selectmen's update?
I just want
to
clarify, so next Tuesday we're meeting?
The goals meeting.
The goals.
Just nothing
Just
else
goals,
on the
nothing.
agenda?
Nothing else unless something like
Emergency.
the Wayfair
Regular time,
and
7 o'clock?
7.
Okay.
Knowing that Leah might not be here in 2 weeks.
I might dial in.
Okay, all right.
So.
All right.
For next week, I think that at your last meeting, you asked if I would facilitate or guide. If that was your wish, I'm happy to do that. But clearly, this is a conversation between the board and the town manager, with the board setting the goals. Is that just so I'm prepared when we get there? Is that what the board wants me to do?
I think we're past that. Personally.
Past facilitation.
Yeah, I mean, that was like, we were going to put goals up on the board and kind of go around, but I feel like we've got them in writing now and they just kind of have to be bucketed. So I'm hoping maybe if we have them all and we can circulate them and everyone reviews them,
Yeah,
there can be a quick meeting on the 30th.
There has to be some discussion though of like, okay, are we going to put 10 goals on them? I mean, we have to have a little discussion.
Well, I think also what's most important in this process is that everybody has a clear understanding as to what the expectations are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because different things mean different things to different people.
Yeah.
Right, so I think we really have to be clear enough, because as long as the expectation is clear on your part, it'll be clear on my part.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, Bill and I talked about it earlier, so, I don't know if you want to mention anything, just kind of that you and I spoke about, but you seemed on board kind of with what has been presented. We just have to bucket some of it.
Yeah, the process is, I think what Leah's come up with is fine. That's actually, it's really well done. I just, my concern is that not everybody has ever done an evaluation. And I think there should be training about that as to how that works, so that the process is a consistent process across the board.
Hopefully we have software and we're not creating a paper process.
Right.
Gosh, God help us.
We will have software.
Yeah, so I think that it's gonna not be what we've had to do the last 2 years as a Band-Aid. Hopefully this will all be automated and it will all,
It'll all fit in.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so, but I think the biggest question in my mind is, the goals are fine, there's no issue for me on my end, but just let's be clear about the expectations, that's all.
Okay. So this is where you sort of take over.
Action items?
This is where you really speed it up, Steph.
All right, here we go. How fast can you read? All right. Okay. Motion to accept a $200 donation to the Foxborough Police Department from the Hockomock Kennel Club to be used for canine maintenance.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept a $100 donation to the Foxborough Police Department from Louise Gruels. Gruels?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Motion to accept a $50 donation to the Boyden Library from Jody, Steve, and Marissa Finkelstein in memory of Judith Light.
Judith Young.
Oh, Judith, that's a soap opera star, Judith Light. Oh my God, that was funny, huh? Judith Young, sorry, Judith.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Motion to approve 30 commercial parking lot licenses to expire June 31st, 2021.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve Board of Selectmen minutes from May 12, 2020.
Second.
Any further
Under discussion, the asterisk is there for who attended in person, Christina, but we don't give a key for what the asterisk means. I didn't see it. I did a search for asterisk, so it just looks like we may have lost it.
And obviously you have to abstain.
I'm going to abstain, yep.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
And abstain?
Aye. How about a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor? Good night, everybody.
Thank you.